Philadelphia Eagles have made their strategy for this offseason and probably next offseason pretty clear at this point. The question is, do you like it? We're going to break down what they're doing, why they're doing it, and, of course, how you feel about it on today's episode of Kincade Salciunas with Andrew Salciunas on vacation. I'm Connor Thomas. In for him, John Kincade to my left. Let's get things started here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
This is Kincade and Salciunas.
It's not season starts tomorrow. I totally expect the Eagles to still make moves. I kind of expected all of this. I think the only thing I'm surprised by is losing both Slay and Rodgers.
I think there's a reasonable approach to say, I trust Howie can find a cheaper option, and hopefully they'll be able to give us the kind of production we got after those guys last year.
Kincade and Salciunas. John Kincade, Andrew Salciunas.
97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
And a happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody out there across the Delaware Valley. I'm Connor Thomas sitting in for Andrew Salciunas, who's on vacation down in Clearwater. We're going to hear from him coming up at 8:30, but it's myself and John Kincade to my left who have you for the week. We've got you locked down with everything going on. And, Johnny, the offseason strategy for the Philadelphia Eagles has become pretty clear. We had an idea of what it was going to be, but it seems that they're putting a lot of stock into the NFL draft. And right off the bat, I'll just ask you, does it make you nervous?
No, not at all, because I'm going to go to the last 4 years and say that the last 4 years drafts, they have hit the first and second days, Connor, with the greatest accuracy, by the way, according to our lads, the greatest accuracy as far as finding starting caliber players that any team has done this century. First 2 days. So it just counts for first, second, and third rounds. They have been so accurate that I am willing to say, okay, 1 year, 2 years, okay. The third year, then I'm seeing a trend. 4 years, I'm down for it. I am a believer that Howie and his scouts have done a great job.
See, I love it, and that's what I expected you to say, because you were the ultimate. It's kind of funny. We didn't realize it at the time, but the Myles Garrett conversation that kind of happened in the immediate Super Bowl aftermath was the perfect table setter for this offseason, because it divided the fan base into the two sides of what this offseason is. Either people who are comfortable in building sustainably and keeping draft capital, or people who wanted to go all in on a splash move. And you were a build sustainably guy, and now...
And also, too, I hate sports radio content. That can't happen.
Wow.
They were never doing it. And Howie's actions of this offseason show you they were never doing it. It was never happening. I don't like the mythical conversations.
I mean, I love those.
Let's go sign this player. Let's go trade for Shohei Ohtani.
Now,
like, I don't like, and sports radio guys who do it, I roll my eyes at.
With Howie Roseman, nothing's mythical.
Yeah, it was mythical.
But
because he showed you it was mythical. He showed you he laid all his cards on the table. By the way, they never called Cleveland. They never inquired. It's already been made obvious. They never were kicking tires on him. This was just mythical sports radio crap. And I don't like that. It bores me. But I get it.
Yeah.
I get why people would be intrigued by it. But people were doing it sports Super Bowl week. Listen, and that's what was pissing me off.
He's an exciting player. I can't blame the fan base, the side of the fan base that wanted Myles Garrett badly to be a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, he signs the major contract with the Cleveland Browns, so he's off the table. But the point is more what the Myles Garrett conversation represents. Do you go all in now, or do you build sustainably? And the Eagles have made their positioning very clear on that one. So what they're doing, first and foremost, is they are foregoing payment of current players that reached free agency to clear cap space to be able to give out extensions to their younger players. They're getting compensatory draft picks, and we're going to talk about that later on in the show and the strategy that they're using there, because, man, do they have a lot of draft picks.
It's wild.
And then...
Is it 21 now?
I believe so.
I think it's 21 picks. That's wild.
That's nuts.
Now, you know that Howie's going to use that to maneuver all around.
Of course.
Which is awesome. It's going to be so much fun watching these drafts the next couple years.
Yes, and we know why the Philadelphia Eagles are doing it. We have a general idea of why they're doing it. It's because you want to be sustainable for a long time. You want to be competitive for a long time. We're going to have a conversation later on in the show that you're going to bring up for us about if this extends the Eagles' window the way that they're handling things this offseason. And I'm inclined to say yes, we'll break that down. But that's essentially why we feel that the Eagles are doing what they're doing. And what they're doing is putting a lot of eggs into the basket of the NFL draft. So our opening question for you today, and you can chime in at 610-632-0975, phone line, text line. Brennan Gunn back there running the board, sitting in my seat as I sit in here for Andrew Salciunas. Are you comfortable with the Eagles putting so many eggs into one basket when it comes to the NFL draft? I trust Howie Roseman to draft.
Okay.
But I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't a little bit nervous about, we've got all these picks. This seems to be the only way we're going to bring this elite level talent in right now because they're not really paying anybody in free agency.
Well, what if I said to you that, remember, we think of the draft picks as unknown sort of lottery tickets you're going to scratch.
Right.
Think of it as, with the salary cap exploding and going up every year and that flexibility, think of them as trade chips. Think of those draft picks as trade options to be able to go and get veteran players on your team. So if you're interested in getting a guy with a year left on his contract or 2 years left on his contract, and you're willing to part with a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick, depending on the caliber of the player, there's other ways to go get veterans that they can build this roster.
You know what's funny?
By using draft picks.
I've been so zoned in on free agency that I hadn't even gotten to that part of the thought process. Like, I just see the draft picks and I say, okay, they're going to try and add to the defense and offensive depth this year through the draft to kind of get some young guys in here, too, what the coaching staff could do. But I haven't even really gotten to the point of considering what those could be in future years as far as trade chips.
Well, also, too, moving around.
Right.
You know, go up and down the board, which Howie likes to do anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe right now, I do not believe they will pick at 32.
No, I'm with you.
I think they'll trade out of the first round because that'll be a valuable fifth-year option pickup grab for somebody else, and they'll go another route with that.
Yeah, it seems to make total sense. Like, I'd be shocked if they pick at 32 because what they've shown you is they're going to, and this is not what the Sixers did for so many years in the process, but they are trying to get as many bites at the apple as possible. The difference is we have a lot more faith in them to evaluate and bring in NFL-ready talent than some teams that we see acquire like all these level of draft picks. So not only do the Eagles have a boatload of draft picks, but they have the guy in charge that seems to be best apt to use them, maybe in the entirety of the NFL.
I love the fact that they're so young. And to me, it's the idea of having all that draft capital is fantastic to me because we're also not in an era where we distrust Howie Roseman.
Right.
Because there was an era where people distrusted him. And I'm going to say one thing about the Myles Garrett thing that we talked about a little bit earlier. The idea is the same members of the fan base, the same people, and I could go on their timeline and prove it, are the ones like, go get Myles Garrett. Oh, my God, do whatever you got to do to get Myles Garrett. And the minute that they saw, all the veterans leaving in free agency, what are they doing? How's Howie letting all these veterans go? If they had went and gotten Myles Garrett, do you know what that would have looked like? The exodus? Come on now.
Yeah. I mean, now the argument conversely to that would be, if you were losing these guys either way, you might as well have given that money to Myles Garrett, which doesn't make sense in the long run. But
yeah, you don't want three guys for one.
Yeah.
You get three players for one.
Exactly. There's mental gymnastics to get to the point where I'm sure there's a portion of the Eagles fan base that was still like, I wish they would have tried harder to trade for Myles Garrett. But that conversation is gone.
We have two big trades that we talked about in sports radio this year in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
The proposed Myles Garrett deal and the proposed Juan Soto deal. And in neither one did the Eagles kick tires and make serious offers. Sports talk radio did, endlessly, breathlessly, but it was never realistic. It never made any sense to this.
Yeah, I got you. And that's part of those important. This is why those conversations are important to have, whether they're totally possible or not, because it shows you the mentality of the fan base at the time. It's not necessarily about the individual player. It gives you an eye into what the fan base wants the team to do. So when you see Phillies fans say, go get Juan Soto, even though the payroll's insane.
They were second in Major League Baseball last year. Right. They want you to go pay Juan Soto top dollar. And then what's going to happen with Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
Redo my deal. So the Phillies were never doing that.
That shows a starved fan base, though.
That's why they never called.
When you see Myles Garrett and a lot of the fan base wants the Eagles to go make that trade, they want to see big moves to push all in for stuff right now, and that shows you there is going to be some pushback on what Howie Roseman's trying to do. So it's not necessarily about the individual players, but more what those moves would represent. And the Eagles have said to the fan base, hey, we're going to try and be good at this for a long time. And it may mean a little bit of a step back in 2025, 26 compared to what they were. Not as an overall team, but compared to what they were. So I want to know coming up next what the explanation is as to why the Birds are being so conservative with their money this free agency, because I think there are two options as to the reasoning, and I'm interested in which one of those options John Kincade is going to choose. We'll talk about it coming up next. I'm sitting in for Andrew Salciunas. I am Connor Thomas. Brendan Gunn on the board, and more Kincade and Salciunas after this here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
97.5 The Fanatic's Knockout Tournament.
It is, once again, a Football Monday here on The Fanatic. Brought to you by Pierce Phelps Bryant Heating and Air Conditioning. Visit nopaybryant.com. A Championship Monday, St. Patrick's Day Monday.
And none of you are wearing green.
Oh, we were going to talk about that later on in the show.
Not one of you.
Hopefully everyone is enjoying the start to their St. Patrick's Day. Have a green beer for me. I'll have to do like a Shamrock Shake or something this year. Because I'm
Do they
not
still
drinking
do them?
currently. Yeah, I believe so. I haven't seen them.
I haven't seen the commercials for them this year.
Yeah.
Usually you see the commercials touting the Shamrock Shake.
I imagine you could get them, or you can make your own. Just get a vanilla milkshake from somewhere and put a little green food coloring in there. Make it work.
That could work.
Yeah, but happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone out there. We're also going to have a conversation about luck that is going to be very interesting later on in the show. But we started off with a conversation about where the Philadelphia Eagles are taking this offseason and really the next offseason too. Because, Johnny, this strategy of building through the draft that they've made very clear is the way that they want to do this, or at least building through draft picks. And you brought up in our opening segment how that could be via trade as well. That's not changing next offseason. They're not going to all of a sudden make a bunch of splash moves because the guys they have are locked down through next season, the big guys and everything like that.
Well, think of it this way. You're probably going to have to – next year's splash move is going to be the contract extension for Jalen Carter.
Right.
And then you're going to have a contract extension for Reed Blankenship. You're going to have a contract extension for
Cam Jurgens.
Even though I do believe Cam Jurgens and Jordan Davis I believe you're going to see the Jordan Davis fifth year picked up soon. And then you're going to see the Cam Jurgens thing. I think Cam Jurgens will come down this offseason.
Yeah, I think he'll get an extension.
Since they didn't sign Becton, I think that it'll be...
Oh, so you're saying before this coming season you think...
Yeah, I got a feeling if they can. I have to just make sure that they technically can get that deal done. I believe that will be a priority for them, especially after letting Becton walk.
I'd imagine that'd be after the draft once you figure out where you pick and signing all your draft picks. But yeah, something to keep an eye on there. They're not going to not
That's like a training camp thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Or something like that.
Maybe right before the season starts, right about the time of the old Lane Johnson restructure that we always see that comes down. But like the point is they're going to spend money on players they have in-house. Like the Eagles are not going to be a low payroll team.
No.
But they aren't going to spend money in the way that some people may want to, which is the exciting new player signing, the Myles Garrett flashy name that becomes available that the Eagles say, oh, we're Super Bowl contenders, so we're going to go do it. So what's the explanation as to why the Birds are being so conservative with their money this free agency? I think there are two options as to the reasoning why they feel comfortable in doing this or why they feel that they're obligated to do this. Option one is something that you brought up a little bit, and I'd like to get deeper into this throughout the show today. It could be a tougher cap situation than we thought for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Explain yourself.
Well, just that they may be more against the cap than people looked at when you believe that Howie Roseman, you've mentioned this multiple times, like the bill will come due at some point.
At some point, that credit card bill comes due. Everybody learns it.
Or it could be option number two, which is their faith in the younger players is higher than we give them credit for in the fan base.
Okay.
Right? Guys like Keely Ringo, guys like Sidney Brown, maybe a guy like Jeremiah Trotter Jr., depending when Nakobe Dean comes back from his injury. Maybe in-house they believe in these guys a lot more than the fan base does, and they should have every right to, considering they see them daily and we only see minimal parts of them on game days that they get in as backups. So we'll talk about that coming up. Which side of that are you on? Is it more cap trouble or staying away from cap trouble in the future? Or is it truly, hey, we trust our guys. We think that these guys are actually what we're going to go on the PR tour, as Andrew Salciunas likes to call it, for them this offseason. No, we actually believe that. So we'll talk about that more coming up next. And we're going to talk about what Adam Schefter said last week. I'm going to play the clip for you again in case you missed it, about what the Eagles' plan is for their salary this offseason. Yeah, we should have known right then that this is what they were doing. I'm Connor Thomas sitting in for Andrew Salciunas, John Kincade to my left, Brennan Gunn on the board. We're back for more after this here on Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Another Eagle signs elsewhere. I'm Brendan Gunn with your Fanatic Sports Update. Over the weekend, the Eagles lost another key piece to their 2024 Eagles Super Bowl roster when Mekhi Becton signed with the Los Angeles Chargers. The deal is projected to earn the Birds a 6th-round compensatory pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. Speaking of the draft, Dave Zangaro joined the Best Show Ever on Friday and says it's important for the Eagles to take care of some of the roster holes before the draft because they don't want to be doing this.
It's all about making sure you have enough pieces in place where you don't feel like you have to stretch for need in the draft. None of these signings are like big splash signings, and we didn't expect them to have big splash signings, but it's all about just making sure you take care of some of these needs so that when you get to the draft, you don't reach.
The Sixers put an end to their 3-game losing skid yesterday with a 130-125 win over the Dallas Mavericks on the road. Quentin Grimes led the way for the Sixers with 28 points. They continue their road trip tonight in Texas again against the Houston Rockets. Tip-off for that game's at 8 p.m. tonight. You can catch that game live right here on the Fanatic. And the Flyers, they lost their matchup over the weekend to the Carolina Hurricanes 5-0, but they begin their 5-game road trip tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Puck drops at 7 for that game. That game can be heard on our sister station WMMR. This update was brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app today. I'm Brendan Gunn on the home of the 76ers and the Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Philadelphia sports.
Well, we have got a wonderful show for you here on this St. Patrick's Day Monday, a football Monday, a championship Monday here on Kincade Salciunas. I'm Connor Thomas, in for Andrew Salciunas. Of course, John Kincade, always with us.
In green.
And Brendan Gunn on the board.
The only one in green.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, who's back there.
Aaron's in green. I forgot. Aaron, I'm sorry. I am so sorry.
We're going to get into the green stuff because this is going to be a full conversation.
So disappointed in you guys.
I've got green on my hat, but I'll make that argument later on.
I bet Aaron's looking down her nose at you guys, too.
Now, some people may be disappointed in the Eagles for not doing certain things this offseason, retaining certain players, the trade with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. But
sure, we
talked to Adam Schefter last week, and I want you guys to hear this cut of what he had to say about what's more likely for the Philadelphia Eagles as we dive deeper into this offseason. Now, remember, there have been moves made and not made since the time that we interviewed Adam Schefter on this show. But here's what he had to say about the Eagles and their handling of salary over the coming offseason.
I think they're more likely to shed more salary than acquire more salary. That's how I feel right now. So you're asking if there's a trick up their sleeve. No. Again, I think they're more likely to shed more salaries, make more moves the other way than more outgoing than incoming, I think.
So
makes sense.
It does. But basically why I think this makes people uncomfortable in the fan base is it feels rebuild-esque.
What would I say to those people, Connor, is this. Would it make them feel more uncomfortable if in the next offseason or in the next NFL calendar year after the draft, you know that you've got to come to an agreement with the 5th year of picking up Jordan Davis's contract? You have to, and then probably working an extension. The Eagles rarely pick up the 5th year and don't have an extension tied to it. Cam Jurgens, you got to pick up his thing and move on and renegotiate with him and extend him out. You have next offseason, you have Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter, two of the main keys of your defense that are sitting there. They're going to be waiting. And then the summer after that, you're going to be able to approach Quinyon Mitchell, and you're going to have to approach Cooper DeJean as a second-round pick. So Quinyon, Cooper, Carter, Smith, Jurgens, Davis. Those are 6 key players, key young players you have to approach in the next 2 years off seasons. That's why they're shedding salary. That's why they're getting those draft picks. And wouldn't it bother people worse?
Well, it certainly would, but here's the problem. A lot of people do not have that foresight to look at who the Eagles are going to have to pay down the line.
That's quite a list.
It absolutely is. And when you list that out, that should probably, like in an ideal world where everybody sees the NFL cap situation like Howie Roseman or like a competent GM, because this is not rocket science.
Sure.
Who the Eagles are going to have to pay, that would bring everybody to your side of the argument. But the problem with the fan base right now, it's not a problem.
It's not a problem. Right.
The problem with getting to that point is that they just won the damn Super Bowl. And when people see that, guys like Andrew Salciunas, who we're going to talk to at 8:30 from sunny Clearwater.
I hope it's sunny.
I'm sure will be. Well, maybe a little bit of rain.
They had terrible storms last night in the South. Hopefully not in Clearwater. But
it was raining in Florida. It canceled the final round or postponed the playoff of the Players' Championship. But anyway, what you're looking at, though, is the Super Bowl winning team leads to the fan base going, let's go win another one. I know you're not ready for, like, dynasty talk yet, and I'm not close to that as
not
Andrew
until you win a
Salciunas
second.
is.
Yeah.
But he was talking about it, like, the day after the Super Bowl. We came in on Monday morning to celebrate the second Super Bowl in Eagles franchise history, and he was already talking about Super Bowl number 3.
He's looking dopey. And, look, he was punch drunk.
Well, here's the thing.
With the excitement, and a lot of the fan base was.
Exactly. And that's why people are saying, why are these players leaving? Why are they doing what they're doing with the salary? Because this is our championship window, and sometimes extending it does make it like, let's say the window is 75% open. Right? And then it's going to close 25% every year. It's not a perfect example, but just easy numbers, because I'm not great with numbers.
Okay, you're not.
What you're doing now may close that window to 60% for this coming season.
Really?
Well, I'm just using.
Okay, if you use that, you don't believe that it's that.
No, but I'm just saying it may close it a little bit for this coming season, but then it may stay at 60% for the next 5 years, whereas you would have seen a diminishing level of Philadelphia Eagles football.
Well, someone would have to convince me to think, like, if someone was to say to me, the window's like 60% open, I'd have to say to you, okay, who do you think is better than the Eagles?
Oh, we are
even after their moves, and that's the key. And you're going to do it with us.
Yes,
and we're going to see it. I don't believe that those teams exist that are that would put the Eagles' window at 60. Let's put it that way.
I wonder about the AFC because the AFC is always tough. Now, you cross that bridge when you get to it when it comes to the postseason. That would be the Super Bowl matchup. Sure. There are a couple sneaky teams in the NFC that we're going to want to keep our eye on, and we're going to start to do that. Now that free agency has slowed down a little bit, we're going to start to do that a little bit later on in today's show, is take an eye on where other teams have gone and how we're feeling about if the division has gotten better and if the conference has gotten better. But just it's a very interesting place to get a fan base, too. Hey, we're going to win the Super Bowl. We're going to look like we're set up to win multiple in the next couple years. Now, we'll see how everything plays out because things change quickly in the NFL. But we're as well set up as any team in football. And then all these big names are going to walk out, and the fan base is just getting a little antsy with that. I understand. But if you're in that camp, you need to have the foresight that John just laid out with who the Eagles will have to pay.
I do not know this for a fact, and Nerd Boy was trying to work on it yesterday afternoon. I do believe that the Eagles have a chance to be the youngest defending Super Bowl championship team this century. I was trying to do the math yesterday.
Yeah.
And because I'm a nerd. And I think they might be the youngest defending Super Bowl championship team the night the banner gets unveiled down there at Lincoln Financial Field.
Do you like that?
Love it. No, I love it. Because to me, this team is still so talented, and when we talk about the landscape of the NFL, they're still very much in the conversation with all those teams, even after what they've lost. And to me, to be young and so talented, yeah, I'm good with it. I'm really good with it.
I'm not worried about it on the offense because you have guys that have, like Jordan Mailata is a leader of this team. Lane Johnson has been here forever. Jalen Hurts is the face of, Jalen Hurts is Saquon Barkley, and we know Saquon Barkley's leadership as well. The defense, I do kind of worry about that lack of veteran presence. Yeah, because I just wonder, and maybe, hey, it's Vic Fangio's show. Maybe he's that guy, not being the player, but obviously the coach of the defense. The upside to that, though, is the Eagles are in an atypical situation for those young players because they've been to the mountaintop already. Guys like Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, you might say, they're only in their second year. Well, that first year, they saw everything the league has to throw at you. They won the damn Super Bowl. One of them had a pick six in the Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes. And so you should feel good about that.
How about this? Since Revis Island, too, I saw a thing the other day on NFL Live. Quinyon Mitchell, like the least targeted rookie corner since Revis Island.
It's a lot of respect.
I mean, people saw it. They believe. How the hell did they get him? Still, how'd
they get both of them?
I can't figure that out. I just can't. And I do believe with the Cooper DeJean thing, and look, if it offends anybody, I'm sorry. I think being a white guy playing in the secondary absolutely worked against Cooper DeJean. I think there absolutely was a league-wide bias going, he didn't look like everybody else playing in there, and I do believe it hurt him. I think it hurt his draft stock.
Oh, hey.
I mean, look, the Hawks
got him a Super Bowl, got him to Philly.
Look, as C.J. Gardner-Johnson and the rest of them made out, the exciting whites was a thing because it's a thing. It became a thing. There's a bias against it.
Absolutely. I understand.
And they made it pay off.
Yes, they did. They got the benefit of that. Now, we haven't heard from our guy Brendan Gunn, who's back there on the board yet today.
What's up, Gunner?
The Eagles.
You're Irish, aren't you?
Just about 100%.
Oh, well, happy day to you, even though you're not wearing. We'll have the green conversation.
Yes, you will.
But my goodness, I'm disappointed in myself and other people on this show.
You should
today.
be.
But how are you feeling about the Eagles' conservative strategy and seeming like they're putting a lot of eggs into the basket of the NFL draft? Are you nervous about the way the Birds have gone about this offseason?
It's hard not to be nervous about it when you see some of your favorite players go, but you got to think back to 2017, 2018, and they tried to go all in after winning that Super Bowl, signing a Michael Bennett, stuff like that, making moves for the win now. I think that how he learned from that, and he said, we got a roster right now that we can win with, but I also want to win 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, too. Keep it going. You got to pay the guys that are already here. Jalen Carter's going to command probably the highest number ever by the time he gets paid.
He'll be the highest non-quarterback when he signs.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to prepare for that. I'm not too worried about it. CJ, I loved him. I loved his attitude and stuff like that. The further away we get from the trade, I see why it had to be done. But yeah, when you see guys like that go, it stings in the moment. So I don't blame people for feeling that way, but I have the foresight to see what the hell is going to happen in a year from now, 2 years from now. You got to think of it that way.
You know what's funny when the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, the conversation surrounding Howie Roseman was he can't do what he's done following previous Super Bowl years, which was handing out the thank you contracts to aging players or handing out big contracts to the wrong players.
Sure.
And this offseason, he has done the complete opposite, and the fan base, or a portion of the fan base, is still losing their mind at some of these moves.
Howie.
You can't win sometimes.
Don't listen to him, Howie. Don't listen to him.
And I'm not saying it's
Not you.
Yeah.
Do the right thing, Howie.
I'm not going to say it's like definitively going to work out or not, but
Right,
the fact that we wanted him to do it differently, he's doing it completely differently, and now the other side of the fan base is mad. I love it.
You're not shocked, though.
No, I'm not shocked at all.
Exactly.
This is why football is great in this town, because we're so passionate one side or another, even if we end up on the wrong side of the argument. As long as the Eagles win, we're going to be happy. And something that may help them win is this fun idea of compensatory draft picks that Howie Roseman seems to have mastered acquiring. I know John really likes what they've done with that. So you're going to make your case as to why and what they could do with those coming up next. And we're also going to hear from Dave Zangaro, a cut from last week, about what going into the draft with a bunch of needs and draft picks could set you up for as far as a pitfall. So we'll discuss that coming up next. I'm Connor Thomas in for Andrew Salciunas, John Kincade to my left, Brendan Gunn on the board. And we are back for more after this here on Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
We want to hear from you.
show for you today here with a lot of stuff that you have the opportunity to participate in or win, and also a lot of great conversation surrounding the Eagles. We'll talk a little Phillies later as we are just 10 days away from opening day.
That doesn't seem real.
I know, right? And the Buzz conversation that we had the end of last week is very prudent considering opening day has basically snuck up on us for a division title defending baseball team. But
sure.
We will discuss a little bit more about some X's and O's stuff of the Phillies season, but there is a lot of great stuff going on this week. Not just the St. Patrick's Day holiday. The tournament starts on Thursday. The
tournament is Thursday. Well,
March Madness
starts Tuesday.
Well, the play-in games,
You got these stupid play-in tournaments.
Have you ever watched one of those?
No.
Temple was in it 2 years
I'm
ago,
lying.
3 years ago.
I've watched. No,
I don't want to hear
what
from you,
that's funny is?
Villanova.
I did not watch the entire game when they were in the play-in. I did not watch that entire
I
game.
wouldn't either. They got their ass kicked.
I've never watched an entire game of a play-in game.
Yeah, I just kind of zone out on the play-in games. So once Thursday, Friday rolls around.
You play an endless season that college basketball, for some reason, needs to start in, like, early November. And then you go, oh, we still have to give other teams still a second chance to get in the tournament. It's terrible.
But we've got a lot of great stuff that we're going to tell you about throughout today's show, as well as great content. Now, Johnny, you really like the compensatory draft pick haul that the Eagles have gotten. So can you just talk a little bit about why you love it so much and like what that sets them up for in your mind?
Here's why I like it is, I'm going to say to you right now, I'm going to give you the two numbers, 32 and 24. Okay, those are the two numbers. 24 being, I would say that is the worst the Eagles will probably end up picking in the next, like maybe next offseason. 32 is where they pick this year. To me, when you've got 21 draft picks to fiddle around with and to move around with, and if Howie Roseman can go almost wherever he wants to go. Now, it would tell me that the first, second, and third round picks are most likely protected. With the success they've had the last 4 years of finding 3 players in all 4 drafts and finding 12 guys that are critical parts of the roster, I would say probably in their war room they're going, okay, we're going to circle those and we're going to keep them. That doesn't mean, though, that they're going to draft at 32. That doesn't mean that they're going to draft at 64 in the second round. If they see somebody they want with the eyeballs they've had and they have to move to 60, 58, they'll be willing to put some of those later picks, the third day picks, the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds, they're going to be able to put them towards moving around on the boards. It makes a team that has been really damn good at moving around the boards in the first 3 rounds and getting the guy they want. It's like Howie has a superpower now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
so that's what I'm thinking.
He has multiple superpowers. He's not just like I'm trying to think. He's not just the Flash, where he's a one-trick pony. I mean, like
the Flash just has speed, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But he can be invisible, right? Too.
I don't think so. I don't think.
I thought he moved so fast that he could be like invisible.
I think he's so fast he goes invisible, but then he can go back
and then
in
you
time.
See him again.
But like,
oh, he can go back in time too.
I apologize to the Flash. I was not familiar with your game. I'm going to consider him a one-trick pony for the example. And Howie Roseman has now turned himself into Superman, where he does all of these things. And he's got all of these skills. We're going to rank Howie Roseman's areas of expertise later on in the show. I think that'll be a fun exercise. Sure. But like, I love that they have this ability to manipulate the draft how they want to. What worries me more about this strategy is the draft itself. Because as great as Howie Roseman has been recently, there are some pitfalls of relying on the draft. So Dave Zangaro joined the best show ever last week. Dave Zangaro of NBC Sports Philadelphia.
Does such a good job.
And he talked about going into the draft with needs and how that can be a dangerous thing. Take a listen.
It's all about making sure you have enough pieces in place where you don't feel like you have to stretch for need in the draft. None of these signings are like big splash signings, and we didn't expect them to have big splash signings. But it's all about just making sure you take care of some of these needs so that when you get to the draft, you don't reach. Like the classic example, of course, is the Marcus Smith here, right? Like, you don't have a defensive end, you need a defensive end, you draft a defensive end. That's where you end up getting yourself in trouble. So it's just about trying to fill those holes up so you don't feel that pressure once you get to April.
So it's a salient point by Dave Zangaro there, and I really agree with what he's saying. It's a dangerous place to be if you go into the draft with needs. Now, I don't think necessarily the Eagles have a lot of needs. Like, they have positions where they may be weaker than last year, but I don't know where the major weak spots are on the roster as far as, like, position groups. So we're going to dive into that coming up in the 7 o'clock hour a little bit deeper. But, Johnny, when you hear that from Dave Zangaro, does that make you a little bit nervous about the use of all these picks or the trading around of all of these picks? Or do you trust Howie Roseman implicitly? Because with the drafts of the past 4 years, you kind of have to,
Yeah,
right?
I think that's where I'm at. I'm sitting there saying I really love what I've seen out of Howie Roseman. And more importantly, again, with all the flexibility that they've got, it's incredible to me that they can move pretty much wherever they want to go. I don't think they're going to sacrifice second and third round picks in any way to try to like move up, make a bold move in the first round. But one thing that they've shown you is when they target a guy like a Devontae Smith, when they target a guy like a Cooper DeJean, when they're willing to move around and move up the board. Last year, I was cursing at my TV. I was absolutely pissed off that Howie Roseman was not going up the longer that Quinyon Mitchell was sliding down the board. And I was saying, what are you doing? Like, why are you not doing this? And Howie had done such great research, such great reconnaissance, he knew what other teams were going to do ahead of him. That is an unforeseen skill that none of us can contemplate them having, but their scouts had it.
Absolutely.
They knew. I was yelling at the TV going, this is so freaking stupid. Quinyon Mitchell's going to go somewhere else, and you're going to end up with your second choice. Howie was right, and once again, I was the dope.
It takes marbles, though, and it's marbles that a lot of people don't have.
I wouldn't have. No,
I don't
wouldn't
think
have.
I would either.
Connor, I would have been sitting there, and I would have been calling every team when he was 2 slots away.
I'll give you 2 first. I'll give you 3 first.
No, I would have gone. I'm 2 slots away. I would have said, hey, you can have my 5th round pick. Take it. Let's just flip spots. Have my 5th round pick. I would have panicked. Howie and his staff didn't. Great job.
They're amazing, and now they got to follow that up because we've got to see them not repeat exactly to that level, the draft that they've got to have this year, but we have to see them again hitting the draft. And while that's a treacherous thing for some organizations, the Eagles have made it pretty clear that they've handled it the last 4 years. Now, something you and I are we've been agreeing a little bit. I think Salciunas is what divides us on this show here.
You think
Johnny,
it is?
you and I.
Because, we've been disagreeing. We usually can get into some disagreements, but it's usually Andrew spurring it on.
Exactly. We'll find out when he calls in at 8:30 if he is indeed the spark that lights the fire of disagreement on this program. But we're going to agree on something else coming up next, and I think it's something that the Eagles may not have handled right this offseason, and it's a guy that left town over the weekend. So we will talk about the Mekhi Becton signing and why it bothers both of us so much. I'm Connor Thomas, John Kincade to my left, Brendan Gunn on the board. We're back for more here on Kincade and Salciunas after this here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Another compensatory pick for the Birds. I'm Brendan Gunn with your Fanatic Sports Update. Over the weekend, the Eagles lost another key piece to their 2024 Super Bowl roster when Mekhi Becton signed with the Los Angeles Chargers. That deal is projected to earn the Birds a 6th-round compensatory pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. Speaking of the draft, Dave Zangaro joined the best show ever on Friday and says it's important for the Eagles to take care of some of the roster holes before the draft because of this.
It's all about making sure you have enough pieces in place where you don't feel like you have to stretch for need in the draft. None of these signings are like big splash signings, and we didn't expect them to have big splash signings. But it's all about just making sure you take care of some of these needs so that when you get to the draft, you don't reach.
The Sixers put an end to their 3-game losing skid yesterday with a 130-125 win over the Dallas Mavericks on the road. Quentin Grimes led the way for the Sixers with 28 points. They continue their road trip tonight in Texas again against the Houston Rockets. Tip-offs at 8 for that game. You can listen to that game live right here on The Fanatic. And the Flyers, they lost their matchup over the weekend to the Carolina Hurricanes by a score of 5-0. But they begin their 5-game road trip tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Puck drops at 7 for that game. And you can catch that on our sister station, WMMR. This update was brought to you by Rapid Radios. Rapid Radios are instant push-to-talk walkie-talkies offering national LTE coverage. For a limited time, go to rapidradios.com now for 60% off and free UPS shipping. Add code radio and get an extra 5% off. I'm Brendan Gunn on the home of the 76ers and the Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Ricky Vitalico.
I understand you want to be as young as possible, but I mean, CJ, GJ...
Now, he just got down to Clearwater last night.
Good
right?
for him.
So,
Yesterday afternoon.
And
I did read this morning. I was not on social media with him yesterday. I did read that he had a clumsy trip, I guess, as far as it was very raucous with turbulence.
he also hates flying.
Coop loved it.
He hates to fly, and Cooper loved it. But
Yeah.
he hates flying.
Well, Salciunas is a big baby.
I
It's
think
okay.
he's a big wussy boy. I mean, let's be honest.
But he made it down there, and his family's safe and sound, so we'll hear from him at 8:30. We won't have much of an update, obviously, because he just got into town. But throughout the week, if you want to know what's going on down there in Clearwater, Andrew Salciunas is our guy. He's going to join us at 8:30 every day of this week from his trip down there with Philly Sports Trips. Speaking of Philly Sports Trips, we got a great opportunity for you on this one.
Those folks are great.
We've got your shot to win your way onto the road trip for opening day in D.C. with Philly Sports Trips. The Phillies will take on the Washington Nationals starting on March 27th for their opening series, and Philly Sports Trips is going to be down there. So the trip includes top-notch tailgate, bus transportation to the event, tickets in the 100 level with hundreds of fellow Philly fans. They're not going to just sit you with a bunch of D.C. fans.
No, they take over.
For the March 27th game, which is indeed opening day in D.C. You can enter for a chance to win on the contest page at 975thefanatic.com. From Philly Sports Trips, book your trip today at phillysportstrips.com. We can't say enough good things about Philly Sports Trips and Vince, who runs operations over there, and it's going to be such a fun time. If you want to build buzz for the Philly season, go on the website, put your name in, you win that. Oh, man, how could you not be excited?
Okay, that'd be a great trip. That'd be a lot of
making
fun.
the trip
Yep.
down.
I'll
What
be down
game
for
are you
game
going to?
two.
Game two, gotcha.
So my little cuz Olivia is now working in the Capitol building for one of the senators from Nevada. So we're going to go down. We're going to see her Friday night for dinner. We'll take the train down after the show Friday. We're doing the Capitol tour, the White House tour, and the Phillies in the afternoon on Saturday. All on Saturday.
That's a busy-ass day.
It is. It's going to be incredible. And I said, as long as they have my reservation for the Capitol tour, I won't have to storm it. But, I mean, I have a reservation. They better hold the reservation because I'm looking forward to doing it all. It'll be a great time.
Well,
and I'm going to see if I can drop some notes off to the president and say, come on, here's some things that I'd like to have done.
Yeah, make the
Kincade
Eagles
Salciunas.
perpetual Super Bowl champions
And
forever.
the Eagles will be there a month afterwards. So that'll be great. They'll be visiting.
So we've been talking about the offseason, and one of the guys that we wanted to be part of this Eagles team going forward was available at not too hefty of a price, Johnny. We're gonna agree on this one again.
Does this surprise you?
Yes, very much so. I gotta eat crow. I gotta apologize to you. We got in an argument on Friday's show about Mekhi Becton.
We did.
And the contract amount and what was going on with his market. And I was completely off on this. I can't believe how off I was. We'll tell you exactly what I was wrong about. Well, this specifically, I'm wrong about a lot in just a second. But you're listening to 97.5 The Fanatic, WPEN and WPEN HD1 Burlington, Philadelphia, a Beasley Media Group station broadcasting live from the Comcast Business Studio, powering possibilities. I thought his market could be anywhere from 60 to upwards of 70-some million based on some of the guard contracts that were getting handed out.
And what I was saying to you the other day, and it's not like I had inside info or that it wasn't that you were wrong. You just misassessed a little bit the market. I believe when you see the first wave of free agency go, when Adam Schefter comes on with us on Wednesday and goes, guys, we're on hole 16 of a golf course. We're almost at the end. That told me that the Mekhi Becton situation, his stock wasn't high across the league because somebody would have jumped on it. Somebody would have jumped on it and paid him at least a far more reasonable number. I'm shocked at this number.
Yeah, 2 years, $20 million with the Los Angeles Chargers. I thought the reason that he made it to the secondary wave of free agency was the trying to determine whether or not he was going to play guard or tackle.
And the thing is, I think you were very logical there. I don't think that is I don't think you're being dumb by.
But you could be logical and wrong. And Mekhi Becton ends up getting a $10 million, his max cap hit. And if he signs that deal with the Eagles, either Howie Roseman's going to backload it to the second year of the deal. Sure. He's going to add some third void year with a team option, or he's going to give the salary bonus up front, or the signing bonus, I should say, up front and cut down on that cap hit. But max, it would have been $10 million each of the next 2 years. The Eagles have $26 million right now.
That's ridiculous.
Available cap, and they just decided not to bring him back. That was the one where I was just like, okay, this guy was such a big part of it last year, and you're going to say, hey, we're good not giving you an okay salary for a starting guard. I mean, honestly, that would be an underpayment for Mekhi Becton if he equaled what he did this past year.
I can't believe it that he went for that number. And I'm going to tell you, I trust Howie, but I'm bummed. I'm bummed for $20 million that you didn't get that done. But it tells me that's where I came with it earlier today. I truly believe this means that the extension is coming for Cam Jurgens.
Has to be.
Because the money has to be going somewhere on that line. You know how they invested. And they probably said to themselves, look, we have we want to make sure that we're going to be able to get Cam Jurgens locked down. And we think that right now we have a guy who's ready to step in, Tyler Steen, and he's going to be that guy.
Yeah, and we'll see if Kenyon Green can make anything of himself here under Jeff Stoutland's tutelage. Speaking of Jeff Stoutland, bummed is the right word, Johnny. I was bummed as well when I saw that Mekhi Becton deal because I'm like, that was probably affordable. The Eagles are really going to be conservative with the amount of money they give out to players now because they're going to have to bring in all of these draft picks. They're going to have to give out extensions, but I'm not worried about it. And the reason I'm not worried about it is because 4 of your 5 offensive linemen, let's just call whoever plays right guard player X right now. Well, the guys surrounding player X, whoever that turns out to be, are all Pro Bowl to all-pro level talent. They're unbelievable in Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, and Lane Johnson on the outside right tackle there. So you have Jeff Stoutland as well, who's going to tutor whoever comes in and plays right guard for the Birds, whether that's Tyler Steen, Kenyon Green, or someone who's not on the team right now. I'm not worried about that position. It just bums me out to see a player that was that productive at it go for so little of what I thought he could make.
And maybe it was us just totally. And look, he didn't go I definitely thought they were going to be able, that he was going to be a number that wasn't going to be as big as everybody was saying. But I never thought it was going to be that number. So we all were off base on it to some degree. But you know who wasn't? Howie.
Yeah. Well,
he was. Howie wasn't.
We'll see what they do at guard and if he's productive enough because if Mekhi Becton goes to the Chargers and all of a sudden Justin Herbert has all the time in the world and the Philadelphia Eagles have trouble with pressure up the middle this year, that's the thing. We're not going to know how this plays out, and a lot of this is going to be guys getting coached up, so we'll see in training camp, preseason, and then once the regular season rolls. We got months to go, but that was the one, too, that I was just like, okay. I didn't see the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson trade coming, but
none of us did.
I understand it a little bit more. The Mekhi Becton thing was, I wish they would have paid him.
I'm still bummed.
Okay.
I'm a little bummed about the Mekhi Becton thing.
Well, but
if it gets me Cam Jurgens locked down, I got to trust that they know a hell of a lot more about Tyler Steen than I do.
Yeah, exactly.
That they know day to day, okay, Tyler Steen's ready to do it. He's ready to be in there, and he's going to take care of business.
610-632-0975 is the phone number you can call and you can text in. What this is boiling down to is basically, are you comfortable with the Philadelphia Eagles' offseason strategy of building sustainably, which this year and potentially next year points heavily towards the NFL draft? Basically, are you cool with what Howie Roseman's doing? Have we gotten to the point? Has your mood shifted since these moves came down? Because I was talking to Brendan Gunn about the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson thing earlier, and feel like we're coming around on it a little bit. We're understanding it a little bit more, he mentioned. So maybe the fan base's shock on moves that they weren't expecting to be made is now turning into understanding. So what do we have on the text line there, Brian?
Yeah, we got Eddie and Delco checking in saying when we let the guys go, they're ultimately guys that can be replaced. Yes, we love them. Yes, we appreciate everything they did to contribute to the Super Bowl last year. But we're not talking about losing guys like Saquon or an AJ or a Jalen Carter. We already have our foundation in place. Let Howie cook to fill the rest out.
I love it, and I had that conversation with my sister-in-law yesterday, or rather Saturday.
Does that seem strange to you, by the way, new sister-in-law this year?
I'm starting to get used to it.
Just call your sister.
I got to go sister-in-law.
No, you don't.
Okay.
Just call your sister. Call her sister. It seems warmer.
All right, my sister.
Seems a little warmer.
I'm not used to that one. I'm more used to sister-in-law. But she's a huge Eagles fan, was very worried. My brother was telling me she's been worrying like crazy about all the free agents that we're losing. I'm like, okay, take a deep breath. The Eagles are totally fine, right? They are going to be totally fine this year. I don't know if they're going to be as good as the past year's team.
Sure.
But they're still a monster football team, and that's what our texter was talking about just there, is they still have their main guys in-house when it comes to what they need to be a competitive football team at a championship level coming up in the 25-26 season. And we're going to discuss that further coming up next. It's a great lead into what I wanted to get into here. What's the Eagles' weak spot right now? I think they have weak positions, singular positions, but I do not think they have a weak positional group. You may disagree, John. I'm not sure your thoughts, so I'd love it. I'd love yours on the text line, 610-632-0975. You can call in, you can text in. Where's the Eagles' weak spot right now? Because I can make an argument that they don't really have one. We'll see if that argument carries weight coming up next. I'm Connor Thomas sitting in for Andrew Salciunas. John Kincade alongside me, Brendan Gunn on the board. We're back for more after this here on Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Mike Missanelli.
They really like Vaughn. Look what happened. They're not going to lose guys they really...
St. Patrick's Day Monday, Championship Monday here on Kincade Salciunas. Football Monday, by the way, on the Fanatic is brought to you by Pierce Phelps Bryant Heating and Air Conditioning. Visit nopaybryant.com. I mean, every Monday is going to be Football Monday with the way that this Eagles offseason is gone and the Super Bowl to react to and everything like that. There's never not news when it comes to the NFL. And the Eagles, one of the more newsworthy teams right now in football. So
and now we're getting closer and closer to draft, which is fun.
It's great. This time of year is beautiful because the weather starts to kind of fake break before it gets cold again, because there will be another stretch where it gets cold again outside. But St. Patrick's Day is always a fun holiday. The tournament is always fun. You start to get golf being played. Like, this is the time of year where things start to turn into, I mean, we're 4 days away from spring, technically?
Yeah, we are. Right around the corner. 21st. Well, this is, as I've learned from Cecily Tynan and Adam Joseph, we're in meteorological spring right now.
Okay.
March, April, May. See, I like this much better. March, April, May is meteorological spring. But spring technically doesn't begin until March 21st.
Yeah, you get that free day at Rita's, too, and Ricky Bo. It loves being the little spoon.
Oh, he loves.
Oh, yeah.
He loves it.
If you haven't seen that, go to our socials because Ricky got on a fake ad read earlier this week. But
love that.
We have not been duped by the Philadelphia Eagles offseason. Howie Roseman told us it was going to look a little bit unconventional.
Different.
And that is how it has looked. But to anyone freaking out about the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm very interested, because, John, you're a guy that looks at things a lot more questioning than I do. I like to look optimistically basically all the time.
You do. You are a golden retriever.
Absolutely.
If we did 23andMe, Connor is like 38% golden retriever.
He's got that dog in him.
He's like that hopping around, chasing the ball.
I'd have questions for my family if I had that much golden retriever in the
I think you
bloodline.
might. I'm around 11.5% Neanderthal.
Yeah, I could see it.
Oh, mine. It's amazing.
that tracks. Well, in case you were wondering if that was accurate. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this because I don't know that the Philadelphia Eagles have a major weakness right now. Now, the way that we're looking at this is not a singular position. I'm talking about a position group. So if you say, I'm worried about outside corner or I'm worried about safety, those are fair. But when you look at the entirety of the defensive backs, they have some great players.
So do you count edge rushers as
part of the defensive line because that all is contingent in the pass rush?
Well, defensive line looks good, but it's just thin at end.
Absolutely.
Very thin.
Right. There's work to be done. My argument here is not, the Eagles are a perfect team, but the question is more, can they sustain the losses that they've had in names this offseason? And I think if you get caught up in the names that are gone, you're going to be a lot more worried than when you look at like what the team has. Like offense, they're totally fine everywhere until they decide whether or not they're moving on from Dallas Goedert. And if they choose not to, they're perfect. But they're fine everywhere. I don't care who plays right guard for this team. I got to be honest with you. Because I think the offensive line is so stout in and of itself.
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of stout, Stoutland's so good at coaching. Whoever's going to play. When was the last time the Eagles had a lineman that actually was a starter on the offensive line that soiled themselves and couldn't play?
It's been a while.
So I have faith that that's going to work out. So the offense is totally fine. All position groups accounted for, besides maybe tight end, and we'll see what that looks like.
Tight end is as thin as it gets, right?
Well, if Dallas Goedert's gone, but we don't know that yet.
He's gone. Can we just declare it dead? Can we toe tag the body?
No time of death yet.
He's made it. He's
coding.
Is it better for him? Like, there's a possibility that he can come here for the last year, rework his cap hit lower, take a pay cut because it's going to pay off next offseason when he's a free agent.
I'm going to tell you right now that the Eagles telegraphing that they were shopping him this wide, I don't think there's any ways back.
So are you giving the JK guarantee, the 100% that Dallas Goedert will not be on the Eagles?
Yeah, I think he's gone.
Okay.
I think he's gone.
Listen, I think so as well.
I don't want him to necessarily be gone, but I don't want to pay him a $12 million cap hit's ridiculous. And I don't know that I want to extend him much past. He's hurt every single year. He's the old lady on the Life Alert commercial.
Yeah,
you're going to pencil in 3-4 games a year that a young guy in the prime of his career has not been available to.
And you don't even necessarily miss him when he's not there, per se.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he's soft. I'm not telling you he's soft.
No, just
he's not
had injuries.
He's not wearing 21. He's going out there just teasing. He's going I knew we'd get the reaction. He is out there. I think he's trying to I think his body's broken down on him.
Yeah, and it's tough to play that position, especially when guys go low on you all the time, try to take out the knees. He's
not
injury.
like he has to take back-to-backs off, back-to-back weeks off. Dallas Goedert. It's not like he's playing in the NBA.
Do you guys worry about the linebacker room at all?
That's probably the one spot where you could argue it's a position group where they're weak. That's what I was going to get to on the defensive side of the ball, so thank you for moving that conversation along quickly. If Zach Bond is your starting middle linebacker, and he will be, I don't know who's...
He better be.
I don't know who's starting next to him right now. Kobe Dean may not be ready for the start of the season. We don't know yet. We'll find out as we get into camp and what his recovery process looks like. You lost Oren Burks in free agency. You haven't really added anybody else to that room, and I don't know what Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is. If Ben Van Sumeren is playing both ways and playing fullback and linebacker for this team, I think that would be a little bit of a problem. All due respect to Andrew DeCecco, who loves Ben Van Sumeren, who we'll talk to DeCecco later on in the week. I don't really see the linebacker room as strong enough right now. But outside of that, I can make an argument that you have multiple plus players at every position group on the team.
Multiple plus.
Yes. Besides tight end, besides linebacker. Think about it. Running back.
Okay, defensive end.
Absolutely.
Multiple?
Listen, I'll tell you that you're looking at
Nolan Smith isn't plus yet.
After this postseason,
Nolan Smith had a marvelous run. Nolan Smith was also invisible for a lot of 2025, and he was slow on the uptake. It took a year and a half for him to make an impact.
Also, remember, we're doing groups, so
no, I got you.
Line.
So then
Jalen Carter.
All right, okay, so you're keeping it as line.
What about safety? Are you going whole secondary on that one?
Secondary, defensive backs group, because these guys work in tandem.
Well, the whole secondary makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Sense. It's not going to be last year where you have guys that are Pro Bowlers at every position. But you need to look at it and say, how many, if you supplanted this Eagles team back in, I don't know, let's call it 2014, we feel pretty damn good about the quality of this roster.
Oh, we'd feel fantastic.
You compare it to other teams around the NFL, which we're going to do later in the show, and you'd say, wow, the Eagles are still stacked compared to everybody else.
Like what I said to you earlier, if the Eagles are the youngest defending Super Bowl champion this century, is that a good thing for you or a bad thing? You asked me the question. I think it's a great thing. I think a lot of people wouldn't agree, though.
I think it's a good thing with balance. But we'll open up that question. You can chime in on the phone line, text line 610-632-0975. If the Eagles are indeed the youngest defending champion,
and it looks like they're on track to be that,
does that worry you, or do you like that? I have a little bit.
You like that?
All right, Kirk Cousins.
You like that?
I have some reservations. We'll see. Now we're going to open up the hardball team. What do you say about that? We're going to talk a little Phillies coming up next because you think that their schedule allows them the opportunity for another quick start.
Yep.
I might disagree.
Ooh.
But John is going to explain why he feels the way that he does coming up next. I'm Connor Thomas in for Andrew Salciunas, John Kincade, Brendan Gunn along with us here on Kincade and Salciunas. We're back from Warrior 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Another Eagles free agent hits the road. I'm Brendan Gunn with your Fanatic Sports Update. Over the weekend, the Eagles lost another key piece to their 2024 Super Bowl roster when Mekhi Becton signed with the Los Angeles Chargers. That deal is projected to earn the Birds a 6th-round compensatory pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. Speaking of the draft, Dave Zangaro from NBC Sports Philadelphia joined the best show ever on Friday and says it's important for the Eagles to take care of some of the roster holes before the draft for this reason.
It's all about making sure you have enough pieces in place where you don't feel like you have to stretch for need in the draft. None of these signings are big splash signings, and we didn't expect them to have big splash signings, but it's all about just making sure you take care of some of these needs so that when you get to the draft, you don't reach.
The Sixers put an end to their 3-game losing skid yesterday with a 130-125 win over the Dallas Mavericks. Quentin Grimes led the way for the Sixers with 28 points. They continue their road trip in Texas again tonight against the Houston Rockets. Tip-off for that game's at 8. You can listen to that game live right here on the Fanatic. And the Flyers, they lost their matchup over the weekend to the Carolina Hurricanes 5-0. But they begin their 5-game road trip tonight on the road to take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Puck drops at 7 for that one. And you can hear that on our sister station, WMMR. This update was brought to you by Staples Stores. Your local Staples Stores has hot deals on super low prices throughout the store on everything you need for your business. Save even more with the Easy Rewards program at Staples. I'm Brendan Gunn on the home of the 76ers and the Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Bill Colarulo.
I do trust Howie Roseman. I think he's the best general manager in the NFL. But at the same time,
heading into a very fun time of the sports calendar, not just here in Philadelphia, but in the country when it comes to the weather breaking and baseball season right around the corner. March Madness coming up later this week. Football free agency is still rolling. The draft is coming. It's just some great stuff that's going on. And, Johnny, not only are we 10 days away from Philadelphia Phillies opening day,
okay.
Well, Major League Baseball opening day, I guess, technically, even though there's the early series. We're 9 days away from another great event. We are 9 days away from the Fanatic Knockout
that's good.
Challenge.
Wait a minute. Knockout and then opening day the next day? That's
Absolutely.
a good week.
It's a quick turnaround there. The night of the 26th into 27th is when opening day is. But let me tell you about Knockout because I don't want the people waiting for the keyword for today. So the keyword that you have to enter for today's Knockout prize is SEAT, S-E-A-T. So 97.5 The Fanatic's Knockout Tournament is your chance to shoot hoops on the Sixers court. Again, we told you Wednesday, March 26th. You could be the one to knock out one of the Fanatic hosts or producers. Now, John, you're not participating. You're going to be emceeing?
I'll MC.
Okay. But I know B. Gunn will be playing.
I know B. Gunn will be there.
I wish. I'm going to be working in the studio.
Right. You're in studio?
Yeah, Connor's lucky.
Oh,
You're going to be gunning it up today?
Connor knows I'm the best shooter on the show. But Connor knows it.
I listen. Free throws are a different game, my guy. But here's how to win. You listen weekdays for a keyword during each show. So we have ours. Mike Missanelli's show has a different one. The Best Show Ever has a different one. Ours today, again, is SEAT, S-E-A-T. And you enter that keyword on the contest page at 975thefanatic.com. By the end of the day, we'll pick a winner from each show every day, and you'll get 2 tickets for the game that night versus the Wizards. And one of the 2 will get to play in the Knockout Tournament. Sponsored by Barlow Chevrolet and Del Rand for honest pricing and dedicated service. Go ahead and check them out. Visit 975thefanatic.com for complete details. That's always a great event, so I love that. But speaking of opening day, Johnny, you had a thought about the Phillies' early schedule.
Yes.
And that you think it's a great chance for them to get off to a hot start again this year.
This could be our first chance to disagree today?
It may be.
I love the way the schedule breaks for them early, pending one thing. And it's something that none of us have control over. Except Uncle Victor on General Hospital, who has a weather machine. The weather could affect the Phillies' chances in 2025. They have I think it's a great opening month schedule. And they're going to play an inordinate amount of home games in April, which is crazy. By the way, all the Temple kids are grabbing that deal that the Phillies had where you can go to every game for like $10 and you have the pass for the whole month to be able to all the games. Liv and all her friends are grabbing that thing so they can go down 4 or 5 times for a cheap price. You get Nationals, Rockies, Cardinals, Giants, Marlins, whether you believe the Cubs are going to be anything or not, and then Nationals again at the back end, leading you into May. You got a great chance there to get off to a great start with a ton of home games. You're only playing 9 home games in the first 3 weeks. 9 road games in the first 3 weeks. At the Nationals, at the Cardinals is part of that. And then at the Braves, which will be a good one because you may catch the Braves a little bit banged up.
They are right now. So you make a strong argument. And the deeper I look into this, because I'm not a huge look forward at the schedule guy.
Now here's where Connor is not a psychopath. Here is your Phillies, for the YouTube audience, here is your Phillies schedule grid versus every other team in the division.
My goodness.
To look at that,
How long does it take you to put that together?
Dork Boy says it works pretty fast.
Oh, my God.
You think Howie Roseman has superpowers? Dork Boy has them too.
I don't know if that's a superpower.
It's every day. It is every day of the calendar.
Oh, I see.
Who has the day off?
Know if I like
and it scrolls it all the way through.
I just have the old ESPN app, the handy dandy score bug thing here.
But the thing is, you're not looking at all 5 teams against each other at a real easy glance.
That's true, but that's what we have you for.
And doing what we do for a living, I like having it at a real easy glance to say, okay, Braves have a tough. Braves open the season 4 at the Padres, 3 at the Dodgers.
Yeah, that's not easy.
And that's before you play the Braves. They will have played that 7-game road trip. You can look at it 2 ways. They get Padres, Dodgers out of the way first week, or they start 2-5 or 1-6, and you got a chance to jump them in April.
Yeah.
Which I think is, if the Phillies want to repeat, Connor, by Mother's Day, they've got to be in first place.
Okay.
John, coming into last year, you were saying you were on the boat of saying the Phils need to get off to a hot start. And they got off to that hot start last year.
And they
Do you
won
still
the division.
hold those same kind of ideas that they need to get into a hot start?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they just need to not completely collapse midway through the season.
What I think they did last year, though, I think was a self-inflicted wound. I think Rob Thompson with his lineups was Plaxico Burress putting a gun in his sweatpants going to the club. I mean, he shot himself. I mean, literally making dumb mistakes about, we're so far ahead, let's worry about October. Well, what you do is you take your eye off the ball and you lose it. If Connor likes to practice golf, he likes to practice his golf game. And it shows when we're on the golf course and he can get in your pocket for some cash because he practices. I think you can't lose your edge. And so to me, this team needs to be in first place Mother's Day. That's my edict. If they're not in first place Mother's Day, I don't think they will win the division.
So we don't totally
Is that bold
disagree.
and beautiful for you? There you go.
I think that's definitely bold.
It's beautiful, too.
But
baby.
we know that you have these different parts of the baseball season, the baseball schedule that you look at specifically, and we've heard this from you over the years.
Sure.
So this is the one for this year. Mother's Day is the point where they got to be in first.
So
Okay,
Mother's
we'll mark it down.
Day is the 10th of May versus the Cleveland Guardians on the road.
That's a good team.
Or the 11th. It's the 11th, I believe.
Okay,
So that'll be Mother's Day. And by then, we're going to know the 11th. When we come in here the morning of the 12th, I'll tell you, and I'll give the JK guarantee.
whether or not they're winning the division.
If they're not in first place on that day, I do not believe they're winning the division.
Wow. Okay, that's going to be
now
very,
that's bold and beautiful.
I really,
that is.
I really hope that they're in second by like half a game.
You're just young and restless.
Yeah, and
see,
we'll,
that's
we'll
what
see
it
how
is.
put your feet to the coals.
No, that's it. I've made it, and I'll stand on it. May 12th, that morning, I'll be able to make that edict.
The only thing I look at when you say like an easy start to the schedule, and you made a strong point, like they have a lot of home games.
Okay.
They have some easy series. I just see that in the first 4 series of the year, you're playing the Dodgers for 3 and the Braves on the road for 3. You also have a set against the Giants, who I think are going to be a sneaky solid team this year. Like, I don't think
a 4-game series here with the Giants, I mean, that's one where I sort of pencil in 3 and say that's one you should be able to win 3
I
games.
got to see what they are first. I think they may be like, they may have a sneaky ability to be like a 500 baseball team.
Are they better than the Diamondbacks?
No.
Are they better than the Dodgers?
No.
Are they better than the Padres?
No.
Then they're going to be a team that is absolutely buried.
Well, maybe.
But they won't be buried in April, is your point.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And that's
Like, they're going to be a team that, to me, gets buried.
They're a team that in September you're going to love to play them. But in April, I don't know, because they're still going to have belief that, hey, who knows? Maybe we could be the second team behind the juggernaut Dodgers in the division. But you also play against the Mets and get that one of those series out of the way. Like, you play some pretty darn good baseball teams in there amongst the Drek. I think if your argument is all the home games that they have being advantageous to the Phillies getting comfortable into the season, I'm totally subscribing to that.
I love, again, too, that the first you get 13 with the Mets.
Yeah.
Only have 13 all year with the Mets. I love the fact that you're playing 3 with the Mets at the Mets in April. Like, I love getting that off the table in April.
Yeah, so you're not going there with like the division on the line.
So you know that if you're in first place on Mother's Day, you know you're going to have 7 games against the Mets of your final 10 at home from that point on. Another reason why Nerd Boy looks at the schedule and says, there it is, angle of why you got to have that.
This is why I don't do it, because I'm not smart enough to count up the games and match them all up.
My
My head would explode.
Look, I'm a dork.
Here's one thing I will say. Getting games out of the way this year, there may not be like at least we get through this, because this division is going to be a dogfight in the NL East. You're going to need every single one that you can get in order to win this. This could be
Michael
like
Vick's looking forward to it.
Oh, my God. This could be like a 92, 91, 90 finish between the top 3 teams.
I'm sorry, Mike.
in the NL
That
East.
was a cheap shot.
So
love you, Michael.
That aside, coming up next, we're going to take a look at what people are getting into on the phone line, text line, but also I want to know what you think the next move for the Philadelphia Eagles is going to be. We've done this exercise before about the whiteboard in Howie Roseman's office. I can't imagine he still has a chalkboard. What do you think's written at the top of it? I'll break down exactly what I want you to answer coming up next, and we'll see what the people are saying about our big topics of the day. This is Kincade Salciunas. I'm Connor Thomas in for Andrew Salciunas. He is on vacation this week, but he'll talk to us at 8:30. John Kincade to my left, Brennan Gunn on the board. We're back for more here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Tyrone Johnson.
There's no reason to panic. But we
an exercise that we've done before. I love this. I love trying to put people in the shoes of the general manager or president of operations or maybe a coach and just imagine what you would do if you had the power. We're also going to see what people are talking about when it comes to our big topics. Mainly what our topic boils down to is, are you comfortable with the Philadelphia Eagles making the draft their main strategy? Or draft picks, rather.
Or draft picks, yeah.
Their main strategy. Because they can use the draft capital to trade for already established NFL players. But it seems that they are putting draft picks way up here when it comes to the value, and they're putting re-signing free agents significantly lower because of the extensions they'll have to hand out. And that makes sense. But they have gone to a pretty extreme degree this offseason with guys
that's fair to say.
Walk.
Yeah, that's fair.
And Howie Roseman is not a half measures guy. When he wants to do something, he does something. He makes bold moves all the time. So this shouldn't have been totally unexpected, but I wonder how the fan base is feeling about the extreme measures that the Eagles seem to have gone to this offseason to create that sustainable window. So what are your thoughts on that at 610-632-0975? You can call in or you can text in. I know we have people chiming in, so we'll check in on that. But this next exercise is an interesting one. So what do you think is the next move for the Philadelphia Eagles? Like, here's the thing that I want you to visualize. You can close your eyes if you're not behind the wheel of a vehicle right now. By the way, hope you're all having a safe drive into work.
Please don't.
Especially with the rain, right?
Rod just got a lot less. Yeah, it was a little bit of a nasty day to work today.
It was. So everyone be safe out there. But while you're driving, just imagine this for me. You're walking into Howie Roseman's office at the NovaCare complex, and he has a whiteboard, his to-do list.
Okay.
On the board next to his desk. And on that, at the top, the number one thing on there is, what do you think it is? Or you could rather go with, rather than trying to pick Howie Roseman's brain, what would you put up there if that spot was left blank? So what do you think is the Eagles' next move? Like, what's at the top of the priority list for Howie Roseman and company?
It's going to be a young edge rusher in the draft. That's what I believe it's going to be.
Okay.
And I also believe that because of Mekhi Becton leaving, there's going to be, in the first 3 picks, there's going to be an offensive lineman taken that is going to be hopefully groomed potentially to be the heir apparent to Lane Johnson.
I mean, it has to be, right?
That'd be my guesses as far as where it's going to go. I love the draft talk. I'm not Andrew DeCecco with the deep knowledge, but I can't wait for all the draft talk to begin. I mean, we're 38 days away from the draft, I think it is. This is going to be a lot of fun. And because of the ammunition that they've got, we may not know, Connor, what the hell they do.
Yeah, so it's very interesting, but you said 38 days till the NFL draft.
I think it's what it is.
And you just put that as top priority for now. So the next 38 days could be very quiet for the Philadelphia
I think it's going
Eagles.
to be very quiet.
Now, I'm surprised you didn't go with Dallas Goedert as the next thing that gets done. Or the next thing you want.
I think it might go draft night.
Okay. Now, talk me through why you think it would be.
Maybe second night of the draft, because I don't think they're getting the price tag that they want.
And you think they will once you get to the draft and people see the players available?
Not necessarily, but some team that misses out on a tight end in the draft ends up saying, well, we'll do this.
Like a DeAndre Swift kind of move for the Birds a couple years ago. They didn't get a running back early that they wanted. They made that move at that point for a 4th rounder.
I wouldn't be shocked. Saturday morning, watch this come true. Saturday morning, April the 26th, that we hear word before the draft, before round 4, Eagles had made a swap with somebody and picked up a 5th and a 7th for Dallas Goedert. Okay. That's my guess. I think we're going to have quiet times.
And I
really do.
You're looking at more of the evaluation of that young edge rusher and like figuring out who that guy could be, running through the options, having the scouts do their job.
And there's some tight ends out there. There's some tight ends. Well, first off, it looks like a lot of offensive linemen could go in the 3rd round. Mm-hmm. And it looks like the tight end class can go deep into the 2nd round.
So if Dallas Goedert is traded, right, and you get a draft pick back for him or whatever ends up happening with that, but if he is no longer a member of the Philadelphia Eagles before this next season starts, are you comfortable with the tight end room if they go, and let's say they draft early in the 2nd round, they go get a tight end?
So they get a youngster that is at the top, like one of the top 4 in the tight end class?
Yeah, maybe ready to play. Like
I'm in.
You're good with him being your starter week 1?
I'm totally in.
Okay.
Because of the talent around him.
That's the same argument I have at guard.
You know what I mean? And that's the key, is that I think you make a great point on that with the guard position is you feel confidence because of what's out there. That they've got they've got, I would feel good.
See, mine would have been, you've actually won me over here, Johnny, because mine would have been looking at the tight end position and figure out what you're doing with Dallas Goedert so you can evaluate what you need to do at that position, because I leaned more towards, hey, you might want to bring in like a one-year bridge veteran guy, just someone you trust to play at that level. I don't know if Grant Calcaterra is a 18-week tight end.
Now, I wouldn't be shocked if they did go your route.
Yeah.
But I think that with the other, let's put it this way, the age on offense is going to dwarf the age on defense. So I think they're going to want to go younger at tight end. But I do not put it past them to say, look, the tight ends in the draft, the ones we want are going to be gone because they're going to draft defense first, I would guess.
Yeah, probably an edge first.
So to me, because there's great value in that, getting that fifth year if they could, or I think they're going to pick the second round. So whatever they choose to do, I could buy into what you're saying, though.
The problem is if they do that, they'd have to trade Dallas Goedert earlier, because if you add a tight end through free agency before you trade Dallas Goedert, that immediately drops his trade value because you're like, oh, you're already counting on this guy to be gone, so now you got to move him. So you'd have to move him sooner. That's why at the top of the board, I think I'd have tight end, figure out what you're doing with Dallas Goedert. But, hey, I love your strategy. You just focus on the edge rusher and kind of have a chill next month and change until the draft. What are people saying on the text line, B-Gun, about our topics today, mainly that conversation surrounding your comfortability with the Eagles' offseason strategy?
Yeah, we got a no-name texter, and it's a short one, but I think his point gets across pretty well. He says, breaking news report, a meteor is headed to destroy Earth. People are going to say Howie can fix that as well.
That's absolutely true.
It is the truth. Well, you know what, though? As we say that, now that texter, the three of us are nodding our heads and we agree on it. But remember, just last week, people were jumping off the Hindenburg with Howie saying, oh my gosh, CJGJ's gone. And what's he thinking? What's he doing? Oh my gosh. So people are very fickle about how much leash they give.
I think they aren't. I think what we saw last week was people knew they were going to shed salary. We had Adam Schefter say that to us, but we had other people mention that. Howie Roseman brought it up himself. He's like, we're probably not doing like splashy stuff. We're going to retain a lot of our own guys. It could look unconventional. But when you hear, hey, we're not going to be that active in free agency, you just assume that the number is coming down. You don't think about the players. You don't see the face of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson when you imagine players leaving. You don't see the face of Mekhi Becton sitting on the field down there at the Superdome, like crying with his kid and knowing what that meant to you as a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it was just the shock factor of like seeing the actual players, like seeing the embodiment of those cap numbers. And then when you get past the shock of like, oh, I love that guy, you're like, okay, well, let's slow down. We did expect this to happen. We did expect Howie Roseman to handle things this way. They did get more cap space. I get why they're doing it. It's just our attachment to the player as far as who they are as an individual because they won the Super Bowl. We're going to love these guys forever. So that makes it tough.
I love that they didn't. Because I really, and we can't go back in time, and I wasn't here broadcasting here. I hated the offseason after the Super Bowl. So the last time. So I'm really enjoying this one. Last championship, not so much. This one, really feeling
it's very different. So if you were anti what Howie did last time, he has gone the complete opposite direction. You got to pick one side. You can't just be mad at the guy regardless of what he does. And you also can't just be happy with the guy regardless of what he does. I'm a little nervous because I would have gone more all in on this current window. And the draft seems like a tricky place to build a team consistently. But we're going to go through a reminder of Howie Roseman's draft record coming up next. I think there's a bit of a misnomer. And, John, you've been one of the people that has brought it up. But I don't think it's a bad reason why you do say it, and I'm going to try and prove it wrong coming up next. I'm Connor Thomas sitting in for Andrew Salciunas, John Kincade, who you just heard, Brennan Gunn on the board. Haley back there running the YouTube. Aaron doing a great job behind the scenes for us, sitting in Brendan's seat. We got a full house here on Kincade and Salciunas. Back for more here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Another Eagle hits the road. I'm Brennan Gunn with your Fanatic Sports Update. Over the weekend, the Eagles lost another key piece to their Super Bowl roster in 2024. Mekhi Becton signed with the Los Angeles Chargers. That deal is projected to earn the Birds a 6th-round compensatory pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. Speaking of the NFL Draft, Dave Zangaro joined the best show ever on Friday and says it's important for the Eagles to take care of some of the roster holes in free agency before the draft for this reason.
It's all about making sure you have enough pieces in place where you don't feel like you have to stretch for need in the draft. None of these signings are like big splash signings, and we didn't expect them to have big splash signings, but it's all about just making sure you take care of some of these needs so that when you get to the draft, you don't reach.
The Sixers put an end to their 3-game losing skid yesterday with a 130-125 win over the Dallas Mavericks. Quentin Grimes led the way for the Sixers with 28 points. They continue their road trip in Texas again tonight against the Houston Rockets. Tip-off is at 8 p.m. for that one. You can catch that game live right here on the Fanatic. And the Flyers, they lost their matchup over the weekend to the Carolina Hurricanes 5-0, but they start their 5-game road trip tonight on the road against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Puck drops at 7 p.m. in that game. You can catch that on our sister station WMMR. And this update was brought to you by Delaware County EDSI Job Fair. Don't miss the Fall Hiring Fest in Delaware County Thursday, October 24th from 11 to 2 at the Springfield YMCA. More info at pacareerlinkdelco.org or on their Facebook page. I'm Brendan Gunn on the home of the 76ers and the Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Philadelphia Sports.
headlines with Brendan Gunn coming your way at about 8:15. So he's taking over responsibilities of that for the week as Andrew Salciunas is on vacation down in Clearwater with his family. I'm Connor Thomas in for Andrew Salciunas, and we've been going heavy Philadelphia Eagles today as we talk about the offseason strategy. Because at this point, as we sit here on St. Patrick's Day, happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you out there, by the way, we have a pretty darn solid idea of how the Eagles are attacking this offseason. Like, we don't know how it's going to work out. That's going to be played out in training camp and preseason and most importantly in the regular season next year. But we do now know the strategy. Like, you could basically predict out what the Eagles' plan has been and will be for the rest of this offseason, it seems. Now, we don't know the specifics, and we don't know the result.
And that's what bothers everybody, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That we don't know, because everybody wants the microwave, especially you kids.
Yeah.
You kids are a lot less patient than I am, be honest. And I have a little more of a long view. You guys are a little more, what have you done for us lately?
Absolutely.
How's it going?
I wanted to go all in. I wanted to go get Myles Garrett. That's short term.
I love the idea that this team has got so many options. Like, we don't know what it's going to be. Even though I do think if we do a draft show the night of the draft, I have a feeling we're just going to be talking about other teams. I just got a weird feeling right now. They're not picking day one.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I imagine they're going to move
It's so
back.
valuable to somebody to grab that late pick,
But
unless they want to move up. And remember, that fifth-round picks, all those fifth-round picks they have, if you took two of them, you most likely could move up to around 25, 24.
Or maybe what we saw them do last year is we saw them hold steady and trust that their guy was going to fall to them, and Quinyon Mitchell did. So maybe they do.
And if it's an edge that they like,
yeah, maybe
then
they
take
there.
it and then say, we got the fifth-year option because it's a first-round pick.
But my guess is with the depth on the defensive line in this draft, they'll feel comfortable moving back and still getting a guy that can help them and also adding more to those draft picks that they've made so valuable this offseason by acquiring a bunch of the compensatory picks and setting up compensatory picks for last year. So the strategy seems to be pointing towards the NFL draft, and that's how Howie's going to make his bones over the next 2 years, or trading those draft picks. But he is going to select a lot of players, and he's going to have hits. So let me just remind you real quick, Howie Roseman's most recent draft record. We're going to go the past 4 years.
Okay, good.
And then we're going to talk about the misnomer that has been out there that I know you are a part of, John, and I don't think it comes from a bad place, but I think disproving it is going to make us feel even better. But
okay.
Going back to 2021, we'll just go with the first 3 picks in this one. They went Devontae Smith in the first round, Landon Dickerson in the second round, Milton Williams in the third round. 2022 was a bit of a shorter draft, but Jordan Davis came onto the team, Cam Jurgens, Nakobe Dean. Those are great picks there. 2023 was a monster draft with Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Tyler Steen, who could be your starting guard, Sidney Brown, who could be your starting safety, Keely Ringo, who could be your starting corner, Tanner McKee, who is now your backup quarterback, Moro Ojomo, who could be Milton Williams this next year. Every single player selected in that 2023 draft is not only still with the team, but a large portion of those players from that draft could be important players on this team. So that was a monster draft. And then, of course, this past year, you got Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalix Hunt, Will Shipley to lead off the top 4. And, of course, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is further down there. So here's the thing with Howie Roseman. There's no denying that he is drafted incredibly. But I had someone text into the weekend show that I did on Saturday.
Okay.
And his argument was something that you've said. Howie Roseman has finally started to shop in the right aisles when it comes to the draft.
Yes.
He's gone SEC. He's gone away from the West Coast. I said Saturday, I was like, I am so glad we are past the days of some corner from the Pacific Northwest who's never going to be able to play at the NFL level ends up here in Philadelphia, which is just a generalization. But I'm glad Howie Roseman went SEC heavy. Last year's draft, though, kind of disproves the whole shopping in the right aisles thing.
Okay.
I don't think he's in the wrong aisles, but he has extended even past that.
Well, the thing is, though, if you say it disproves it, when Quinyon Mitchell went off the board, he was number 1, wasn't he?
He was.
And when Cooper DeJean went off the board, he was best remaining.
Yes, he was.
So I think that's different. I think that's where you say, as far as where you're shopping, the best available at their positions, to me, sort of supersedes it.
I got you, but let's look at these names.
Especially in the top 40 picks.
Let's look at these names and where they came from. Though.
Okay.
Because, of course, let's compare it to 2023. You got Georgia, Another Georgia. Like, it just, you got the Georgia Bulldogs littered throughout that draft. But Quinyon Mitchell went to Toledo and played in the MAC. You may evaluate him as the number one corner in the draft, and there was a lot of talk about that. But listen, there were guys that have been evaluated highly in the past that the Eagles have taken that were not SEC that didn't work out. Cooper DeJean played at Iowa, which, like, Big Ten's Big Ten, but at the same time, it's not the same type of esteem as you get from the SEC schools, especially when you look at Iowa, who's one of those second or third tier Big Ten teams. Jalix Hunt played at freaking Houston Christian. No one in Philadelphia had even heard of Houston Christian unless you went there. I couldn't tell you what conference they're in.
I didn't even know that Houston had Christians.
And
I mean, I had to Google. They have churches and everything, so it is.
Like, the highest pedigree based on school of the first 3 picks may have been Will Shipley coming out of Clemson, who was in the 4th round. And even Clemson isn't quite what it used to be when Trevor Lawrence was there and Dabo was in his main time as a great head coach. Like, the Eagles in the 2024 draft had a bunch of guys that look like hits that did not come out of the SEC. So I think saying, okay, well, Howie's shopping in the right aisle is almost diminishing how good Howie Roseman has been. He's not just going to Georgia and saying, give me this guy, that guy, and the other guy.
To be fair, though, Alabama did throw a boatload of money at Quinyon, and he said, I'm staying out of loyalty.
I understand.
So he could have been an SEC player.
But here's the thing. Like, the argument about it is that, like, Howie Roseman had this blind spot of the SEC, and he cleared that, and that's why he's been drafting so well. It should almost make you feel better that they had such a successful draft last year without any of their top 4 players coming from that conference. So I think it's a misnomer if you're just looking at the reason they've had success is because of Georgia or because of Alabama. I think Howie Roseman's just been successful because he's been successful.
But they've had success before these past couple years, before the last year. Does last year's draft sort of discount the strategy of shopping in the right aisles?
No, it doesn't. I'm not saying discount the strategy at all. You could go draft everybody from Georgia this year, and I'd be totally comfortable with that because I trust Howie Roseman. I just think there is a portion of the fan base that is giving Howie his credit because he is just drafted from the SEC. In their mind, every player the Eagles have selected played for Georgia or played for Alabama is from the SEC. And in reality, Howie Roseman has been good drafting even in places where in the past he had struggles. Finding mid-majors, finding non-power 5 conference guys, and now
or position. There was a time when edge wasn't his fastball.
Yeah, I mean,
finding somebody to get after the quarterback.
Where corner he's missed, and they haven't used premium picks on cornerbacks. Like, Howie Roseman has not just reinvented himself; he has created this new area of coverage that he has when it comes to the NFL draft that I don't even think he gets proper credit for yet. That I think he deserves. So, the shopping in the right aisles thing is not wrong, but it doesn't tell the full story of the greatness of Howie Roseman's past 4 years.
What station are we on?
Oh, we're on 97.5 The Fanatic, WPN HD1 Philadelphia, Burlington, Philadelphia, Beasley Media Group station, broadcasting live from the Comcast Business Studio, powering possibilities. Thank you for the assist there, Johnny.
You're into it. You're very into the conversation, which is great.
Trying to tell people how he's been good, not just in the SEC, but everywhere.
That makes a really, really great point.
A lot of it goes back to not reaching for need. That's where he got into a lot of trouble.
Go a little deeper on that.
Get like a Jalen Reagor instead of somebody else. He's reaching for a guy in the slot because he liked what we had on the outside already in Alshon. Think back to, like, you needed a DN, you pick Sharif Miller out of Penn State, even though he wasn't that great. You take guys that you kind of want to fill positions for instead of taking guys that are just the best on the board. I think he kind of corrected himself on that one. And last year it worked out where a need and the best player available kind of coexisted in cornerback.
That's pretty good, Gunner.
It's not bad by you. That seat must be special. Must have left a little magic.
Did you leave notes under the chair for him?
I did not.
Everyone knows I don't know how to read anyway.
Because you're reading Andrew's notes that he left behind.
Yeah, that's true. No, if I was doing that, I'd still be fighting on the Myles Garrett fight. And could they trade for him with the new contract? No,
exactly.
That's a cheap shot. I wanted Myles Garrett too.
Sure.
We're going to hear from that guy. No notes on the next one, but we've got today's headlines coming up at 8:15, so you're going to want to be zoned in on that from our guy Brendan Gunn. There's some great stuff from the weekend that we're going to hear about. Also, in the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to hear from Andrew Salciunas live from Clearwater, Florida. And there is something that you're going to love to hear if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, because there's some big NFL news that broke late last night that we have, or maybe even early this morning, that we have not mentioned yet on the show.
I think it broke when I was asleep. So
Me as well. I saw it when I woke up.
I didn't see it.
Morning.
I saw it when I woke up, and I went, "Are you kidding me?"
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins have new deals in Cincinnati. The deals got done together. And we did a little comparison before the show of where they're at compared to the Eagles wide receiver duo.
Howie.
Oh, my goodness. They're in a good spot. So we're going to get your thoughts on our topics of the day coming up, today's headlines, and we will talk about why Howie Roseman setting the market is just the world's greatest thing for the Philadelphia Eagles. I love it so much. I'm Connor Thomas sitting in for Andrew Salciunas. That is John Kincade to my left. Brendan Gunn on the board back there running things. And we've got a lot of great stuff coming up for you in the 8 o'clock hour here. It is Kincade and Salciunas, and we are back after this here on 97.5 The Fanatic. Today's headlines coming up in just a couple minutes with our guy Brendan Gunn. But to remind you of what we're getting into today, basically our main question is, we've been looking at it from a bunch of different angles, but it boils down to the Eagles' main goal this offseason has been to shed salary, acquire draft picks as either trade chips or picks to use in coming drafts. And That's the picks that they own or compensatory picks, but they're building a bunch of them. They got 20+ in the next 2 years. They're in a crazy spot, but it then means either you have to hit on the trades or you have to hit on the actual picks that you use. So do you trust Howie Roseman to put all the eggs in the basket of draft picks, right? Do you think he handles that properly? Are you cool with their offseason strategy so far? 610-632-0975 is the phone number. You can call in. You can text in. We also opened up a little bit of a conversation about the Phillies' early season schedule. I think someone mentioned like an asteroid coming at the planet. Was that you, John? Or Brendan?
That was our texter.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about Phillies fan Armageddon later in the show, and that just reminded me because of the title of the movie. But what do we have on the text line about our topics so far, Brad?
Yeah, we got Tucker checking in. He says the losses were not major, but they're enough to hurt next year. The majority of the youth needs another year of development in order for them to be the main guys. And I don't know if mixing in rookies on top of that will be enough to be as good as you were in 2024, but still Super Bowl contenders.
Well,
okay.
The one thing is that's where it comes to is who's better than them?
Yeah.
Did anybody in your mind, if I said to you right now, in your mind, has any team decidedly passed the Eagles because of what's going on this offseason?
No.
Decidedly. Like you are confident this team's at them. I'm not either.
I'm very interested with what the Bills are doing. If we're just talking conference or division, absolutely
Correct.
not in the NFC. The Bills have had an interesting little offseason, and the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. But I don't think you can say definitively past the Eagles. No. They haven't taken a big enough step back that everyone else is like, and multiple teams or any team is really overstepped that. So I feel good about where they're at. The other thing that I'm not sure about is he said the young players still think they're a year away from contributing as starters.
I don't know that I believe that.
I'll tell you this right now. If Sidney Brown and Keely Ringo are a year away from being able to contribute to the team and either a starter or an important depth role, then they're not going to.
It's a disaster.
Right. Like, they can't be a year away. Sidney Brown's heading into his third year. Keely Ringo's heading into his second or third year. Like, and I know Keely Ringo is very young, age-wise, compared to your average NFL player who's heading into the season that he is. But if you got the picks right, they're going to be able to show you something by this point. Like, they were just part of a Super Bowl winning team with some great players. If you haven't picked it up by now, I'm not going to have a lot of faith that one more year is going to make a difference. They're kind of at the point where it's sink or swim. You ever seen those videos where they throw kids into the deep end of the pool and then they like snap at them like young babies and they got to find the way to like get to the surface?
Did you not?
You've seen this, right, Brendan? You've given it a look.
I've seen videos of babies getting tossed into pools and floating up. I don't know
exactly.
what snapping at.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, Christina did the Mommy and Me baby class with Liv as a swimmer. Had her in the water when she was like 6 months old, 7 months old to get her used to being in the water. And at 1 year to 2 years, like around 2 year, they were throwing them in the pool with their moms in the pool.
Yeah.
But literally tossing them in the pool, and the kids would pop right back up, and the mom grabs them, and they laugh.
Well, call Mrs. Brown and call Mrs. Ringo because
they need. Oh, I love Mama.
Tossing them in the deep end of the pool this year.
Love
and
Mama
guess what?
Ringo.
You're either going to swim or you're not. So
that's what it's got to be.
That's
you
reality.
And I agree with that totally. If they're not ready to go, it's a freaking disaster.
Yeah, there's no wait a year. Like
those two will be missed draft picks.
Yes, if they'll play this year, and if it doesn't work out, you're going to have to find something else because you're still in a championship contention window. This has the makings of a retool, but it is not a rebuild. Now, this has got the makings of a championship segment. We've got now today's headlines with our guy, Brendan Gunn.
Today's headlines with the one and only Brendan Gunn.
Yes,
Who's it brought to us by,
the one
Brendan?
and only. It's brought to us by the one and only Lundy Law. For over 70 years, Lundy Law has been fighting for injured people. If you need them, remember the name Lundy Law. Your injury lawyers, visit LundyLaw.com. That's LundyLaw.com. So earlier in the show, we were talking about the exciting whites, of course. Well, I got to bring up another exciting white from back in the day, the White Mamba. Brian Scalabrine was in the news over the weekend. There's a viral TikToker guy, but he goes by the name of George the Messiah. He's a street baller. He thinks he can beat NBA players. Well, Brian Scalabrine took that personally. He went out there and kicked his ass 11-0, and this was his message to him after the game.
Yeah, it's all good when you carry a rifle, right? Until mother shows up like me. That's right.
Yeah, and I'm sitting across from a guy who goes on these airwaves from time to time saying he can beat professional athletes.
Who, John?
Not me.
Do you think you can actually do that? Could you score more than 1 point on Brian Scalabrine?
I would. Is it make it take it? Because if so,
make it take
no
it.
chance. I'd have to get the ball first, and I'd have to just hoist the half quarter. Like there's no way. No, I pick and choose my shots where I go after people who are better than me.
Brian Westbrook is better than Brian Scalabrine.
Much better than Brian's.
No, I know it's a size thing though. Like, listen, I'm not going after Derrick Henry. I'm not going after when I talk to Ricky Bo. It's because Ricky Bo hasn't pitched professionally in so many years. Like, I'm not going after a guy currently pitching for the Phillies. Brian Scalabrine he's a hoss. That's a big boy, and NBA players are very, very good at basketball. So I would not challenge
That's good. That's kind of insight you get only from Connor.
Well, a lot of people don't know that apparently because too many people are out here challenging guys and talking trash to the White Mamba.
I don't get it. We're moving on though to our soccer team, our other team here on the station, the Union. They lost yesterday, unfortunately, but they did have Dollar Dog Day down at Subaru Park.
Oh yeah,
hell yeah! And until things happened just like they happened at the Phillies game, where they threw the Dollar Dogs on the field. There was a penalty kick in the 82nd minute. Fans started tossing hot dogs on the field again, right in front of Joey Chestnut. Is that the end of Dollar Dogs in the city of Philadelphia?
Well, if you can't act like grown-ups, honestly, like to me, it's such a stupid look. That to me, dump it. If you got people that cannot act their age, and they're either too lubed up alcohol-wise, or they just want to be jackasses, stop it.
Yeah, that sucks because I love Dollar Dog
Right,
Night,
exactly. It should be a great thing. It shouldn't end in stupidity saying, we're going to be Philly, man. We chuck Dollar Dogs on the field. It's so freaking stupid.
Here's what I will say. This one thing that I will give to the people that were throwing, it was during a penalty kick.
Yep.
Okay.
They didn't like the call, so they started chucking them on the field when they were setting up for it.
I think much like free throws in basketball where you can make like any noise or have any skip behind the basket like we see in college basketball all the time. If you get a penalty kick in soccer, you should convert what? Probably 70% of those?
I don't know. I would guess 70 plus.
Let the fans throw hot dogs. Let's see what type of resolve that guy has. They're hot dogs. They're not going to hurt anybody, but make the guy focus a little bit more on the penalty kick.
You don't remember that lady that got shot in the face by the Philly Fanatic?
I do remember that with the dollar.
Seriously, though.
I'm not talking about the air-powered hot dog rifle. We're not talking glizzy rockets
You haven't seen
here.
me toss a ball in a while.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Don't throw hot dogs anymore. And yes, Dollar
Please
Dog
stop.
Night may
Just
be
grow
done
up.
for good.
Can we just grow up? Do we have to cater to the lowest common denominator of our fan base?
Sometimes, unfortunately.
All right, and we'll move on to the replay.
Are you comfortable with the Eagles putting so many eggs into one basket when it comes to the NFL draft?
See, I'm comfortable with it for the long term. I don't know if necessarily it's the best move to compete next year. Obviously, they're still going to compete. I don't think it gives you the best chance to go out there and win to, let's say, if you kept C.J. Gardner-Johnson, you keep Dallas Goedert, you keep the veterans around. But I think it lets you sustain success for a lot longer. So I like the idea to go through the draft.
Basically, it's like, would you rather take $5 million now lump sum, or would you rather do like $1,000 a week for the rest of your life? Are you keeping the window open longer, or do you want to give yourself the best possible situation in this moment? Can you be patient is what this is turning down to.
You take the $1,000 a week, by the way.
Well, the math absolutely works out for you in that circumstance. But
as long as you're young and healthy, I'll take the $5 million.
For the Philadelphia Eagles, there's a lot of people that say, hey, give me my money now and go compete for a championship. And you may just have to be patient. And patient for the Eagles means you still could win this next year.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean you're going to stink. Everybody needs to take a deep breath. All right. Part of the reason why you're in such a good spot is because Howie Roseman sets the market on a lot of positions. Coming up next, we're going to look at some big NFL news that broke last night or this morning, whenever it came out, about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins getting joint contracts. I don't think they're technically tied to each other, but they came out at the same time. And why Howie Roseman just looks like such a genius when moves like this get made. I'm Connor Thomas in for Andrew Salciunas, John Kincade alongside me, Brendan Gunn on the board, Haley and Aaron back there working stuff in the back hallway, YouTube and phone lines. So we're back for more after this here on Kincade Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
The Eagles keep stacking draft picks. I'm Brendan Gunn with your Fanatic Sports Update. Over the weekend, the Eagles lost another key piece to their 2024 Super Bowl roster when Mekhi Becton signed with the Los Angeles Chargers. That deal is projected to earn the Birds another 6th-round compensatory pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. Speaking of the NFL Draft, Dave Zangaro of NBC Sports Philadelphia joined the best show ever on Friday and says it's important for the Eagles to take care of some of the roster holes before the draft for this reason.
It's all about making sure you have enough pieces in place where you don't feel like you have to stretch for need in the draft. None of these signings are like big splash signings, and we didn't expect them to have big splash signings, but it's all about just making sure you take care of some of these needs so that when you get to the draft, you don't reach.
The Sixers put an end to their 3-game losing skid yesterday with a 130-125 win over the Dallas Mavericks. Quentin Grimes led the way with the Sixers with 28 points. They continue the road trip in Texas tonight against the Houston Rockets. Tip-off is at 8 for that game. You can catch that game live right here on the Fanatic. And the Flyers, they lost their matchup over the weekend to the Carolina Hurricanes by a score of 5-0. But they begin their 5-game road trip tonight on the road against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Puck drops at 7 for that one. And you can catch that game on our sister station, WMMR. This update was brought to you by True Green. True Green, get a golf course quality lawn for less than you think. Sign up at truegreen.com. That's TRUgreen.com. True Green, the official lawn care treatment provider of the PGA Tour. I'm Brendan Gunn on the home of the 76ers and the Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Ricky Vitalico.
I understand you want to be as young as
Like, we are so lucky.
Do you want me to leave the room?
No, if Howie was here, maybe. But unfortunately, this is just speaking out into the airwaves, hoping that my love letter gets to Mr.
He
Roseman.
bleeds for this city.
He does. He does. And honestly, whether he does or not, what he does as far as his work of GM of the Eagles should be enough, because he sets the market so often when it comes to these major contracts that he has to hand out to players. I think that's part of the reason that we're seeing what happens this offseason happen, because he wants to be ahead of the game on guys like Jalen Carter or Cam Jurgens or Nolan Smith.
Yeah.
These young players that you want to see get paid, and maybe not we'll pick up the option. No, we'll give you the extension now so that we can get into a spot where we're not paying a crazy amount of money. Now, if you're a big-time NFL fan, you've probably been aware of the situation that's going on in Cincinnati with their receivers and quarterback. But if you're not, just to remind you, obviously Joe Burrow got paid as soon as he was available to get paid.
It took a while, though.
It did take a while.
It took a while. They ended up paying more because they waited.
Yes.
Unlike what Howie does.
Jamar Chase has needed a contract reworking, and T. Higgins has been basically franchise tagged since I can remember, because they seem to refuse to have paid those guys what they're worth. And T. Higgins, even, they were trying to decide, do we move on from him? Do we franchise tag him? Do we trade him? Is his future in Cincinnati because he wants a big deal? They were going back and forth for multiple seasons. I feel like this has been going on for 3 years on how to figure out the financials of keeping together Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow, which is hugely important to the success of that team and that offense.
I got to tell you, T. Higgins, though, I don't look at him as the Robin to the Batman that Devontae Smith is to A.J. Brown.
I think Jamar is better than A.J. I think Devontae is better than T. Higgins.
I think Devontae's a hell of a lot better than T. Higgins.
I think you may be underrating T. Higgins a little bit. I like him more than it sounds like you do, but
yeah,
I would still, like, if you put Devontae and T. Higgins in a room, I'd take Devontae Smith.
I would take Devontae Smith every single time.
But I don't think it's a huge gap. The same way I don't think, I think the gap that Jamar Chase is better than A.J. Brown is bigger than the gap that Devontae Smith is better than T. Higgins. I think Jamar Chase is a monster. And that's not saying anything bad about A.J. Brown. But if we live in that world that Jamar's a little better and that A.J. is a little worse than that and Devontae is a little bit better and T. Higgins is a little bit worse, well, then you're looking at a situation where you should be, I don't know, paying about the same amount of money when it comes to the contracts that you break down when you look at the two in total. That is not at all what happens after this contract gets done. So we're going to break down the numbers for you coming up and tell you why I love Howie Roseman so much. We have a special guest.
Too, is why has the defense been so bad? They don't have enough talent. Now they're paying it all in the offense.
Exactly. We have a special guest joining us.
A special guest?
On the Comcast Business Hotline. I think he's on the show normally. It's Andrew Salciunas, live from Clearwater Beach. Salch, how you doing, buddy?
Hello, everybody. It's good to hear from you. I'm staring off into the beautiful waters of Clearwater as we speak, not to make you guys feel jealous. And just
how warm is it?
What's going on?
How warm is it?
It's like mid-60s. It's really windy today, like really, really windy, to the point where a tent where we were supposed to have a tailgate today got destroyed. So today's the only day where the weather's kind of poor, but the rest of the week's going to be great. But again, it's still mid-60s, so like I'm totally fine. I'm still in shorts and a T-shirt despite the wind.
So we're going to get to a little bit of Phillies thought since you're down there in Clearwater, but I want to start with this because I know you're a big salary cap guy, NFL guy. You saw, I'm sure, the Jamar Chase, T. Higgins deals. We were just talking about it before you came on. How good does that make you feel about Howie Roseman to see those big deals get handed out and know that you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith for less?
Well, it makes me feel great because you also already know that your defense is set. Like, you guys know how I felt about Joe Burrow last season. Joe Burrow should have gotten MVP votes. And the only reason why he didn't was because his team was atrociously bad, but it's because his defense was bad. If Joe Burrow's not on that team last year, they lose 60-0. But the fact that he's on that team, they were able to be close and actually win some games last season. So when I see what's going on with the Eagles, not only do they have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith locked up for much less than what those two players were getting, and by the way, they were like kicking the can down the road with T. Higgins for a couple seasons, whereas Howie Roseman just gets Devontae Smith locked up early, A.J. Brown locked up when he still had years left on his deal, and you have your core on defense already. And so this team is built offensively and defensively, which is why I always laugh at what some of the teams do around the NFL, because as great as Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are, and as great as Joe Burrow is, like they're going to put up you should draft them as your fantasy players, right? Like Joe Burrow should be your quarterback. T. Higgins should be your second wide receiver. Jamar Chase should be your first wide receiver. Just don't draft the Bengals defense because you're going to finish with -5 points every single week. So it's great and all. It's fun and all for highlights. But ultimately, that team's not going to win a damn thing.
Yeah, and the draft haul right now for the Birds just continues to get bigger with Mekhi Becton heading out of town this weekend. Connor and I both agreed this morning. A little put off by 2 years, $20 million. That's something I think I would have done, which tells me that money that is allocated there is going to go to Cam Jurgens.
Yeah, and I remember, I think it was Jeff McClain when we had him on pretty early in the offseason, straight up said they're going to figure something out with Cam Jurgens this offseason just because he's the only guy that's not locked up and he is eligible to be locked up. But I'm bummed out. I mean, Mekhi Becton was a great story, great teammate, clearly the way that players speak of him, they speak so highly of him, and he's amazing. And you're right, John, like 2 years, $20 million, I thought that was pretty doable, but maybe it was a couple of $1 million that was the difference.
Sure.
Right? Like maybe they were offering 2 for 18. I'm not a cap guy, you know that. I'm just an X's and O's football guy. But when I saw the 2 for 20, I was like, maybe that was just a couple million more, and good for Mekhi Becton. He's going to try to get the bag. My only thing is for him, how does it play out with LA? Like, does he have 2 dominant years like he did this year? Or is he going to have kind of back to what he had with the New York Jets? And if that's the case, then he's not going to get the next big payday after that. So I was kind of surprised for him, the 2 for 20. It's almost like another, prove it deal. Even though it's the second year, it wasn't that 4 for 60 to 80 that we were kind of expecting from the beginning. So I was kind of shocked.
Yeah, it was a prove it again type of thing. Of course, we're talking to our guy, Andrew Salciunas, on the Comcast Business Hotline. Now, the reason you're down there, of course, is spring training with our friends at Philly Sports Trips, and you're going to be checking out the Phils. We had the Buzz conversation last week on this show before you had left town. What is it like boots on the ground down there in Clearwater? Do you feel differently about the type of vibe surrounding the fan base heading into this Phillies season?
It's Phillies everywhere, and everybody's excited. It is funny, right? We do our shows, and we talk to people on the text line, and we talk to people on the phone lines. And John, you and I always talk about the small percentage of people that actually chime in to a radio show.
Yeah.
It's like 1% of callers, and the texters is probably a little bit more because it's easier to do. But when you actually talk to the people, last night we went to one of the big establishments down here, Coco's, right, where you guys have been before, and it was just Phillies green everywhere because they were wearing the St. Patty's Day stuff because today is St. Patrick's Day, but it was Phillies gear everywhere, and the buzz of the Super Bowl is still kind of carrying over for a lot of people. But everywhere we walked last night in our limited time before we got cooped to bed, I mean, it was Phillies everywhere. And everybody I talked to, the amount of people that said, I think there was some liquid courage. A lot of people said they were going to win the World Series this year, which...
Yeah, that might have been the beer.
For it. I mean, there's more than just beer down here. I was like, okay, sure, they're going to win the World Series this year. But everyone gets it. Everyone realizes that they're still going to win 90-plus games like we talked about last year. There's just that mentality of, all right, they're going to get to the playoffs. It's just what do they do come playoff time. But the people that are around here are just excited to be around the team. So you can get that sense. It's got that opening day feel right now. Regardless of how your team is, opening day is always a party. I was at opening days for the Phillies when they were going to win 70 games in a season, and it was still a party. You're getting that every day right now, but your team's good. And people get that, and people sense that, and they're excited for it, and everybody's fired about the pitching staff, which makes me happy that people still care about old school baseball, that it's not just about home runs anymore. It's also about good pitching. And this pitching staff's ridiculous. And we've got nothing but good returns so far. Other than that Luzardo 3 straight home run game. I mean, Wheeler, Nola, Luzardo, Sanchez, everybody's been tremendous. And we've been seeing that all spring. And the beginning of the season, pitchers always have the edge against hitters. So I'm expecting another fast start from the Phillies this season.
All right, buddy. Well, we got to roll. You enjoy your time. I'm sure you want to get off and enjoy vacation a little bit.
And a good party today. Sounds like a good party. It's always one of the most fun days in spring training.
Yeah, I know a couple people that are down here specifically for today. And so
that's
awesome. I imagine it's going to get messy in some areas, but a good messy. And everyone's going to have fun, and that's great.
You wearing green right now?
No, I'm wearing a Philly Fanatic. No, screw that, dude. I'm wearing maroon. I don't wear the green.
You are not alone. We're going to talk about that later.
He's going to stand out today.
Yeah, we have a lot of folks.
He's going to stand out today.
But
maybe I want to stand out, John. Maybe I want to be more like you.
Maybe you
always
do.
stand out.
I'm the only one wearing green around this place.
Andrew
You guys are the
Salciunas
best.
joining us. Thank you,
See you,
Andy.
buddy.
We'll talk to you tomorrow with some great insight on what you have to say with the Phillies today. So
All right.
there is Salciunas live from Clearwater.
Yeah, I want to
Sounds
hear
like-
how the experience is today. I'm sure it's going to be fun.
He's going to love it. I mean, it was amazing. I just got back from being down there. You just got back from Jamaica. We know how it feels to be in warm weather compared to what we went through.
It's the warm weather.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's just being in warm weather that raises your entire spirits.
That's why he's so positive about everything.
It's going to be awesome.
He said some interesting stuff. We'll react to what Andrew had to say about some of our main topics of the show that we asked about. And I'll give you those numbers coming up on why the T. Higgins and Jamar Chase deals look so, crazy in comparison to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, both numbers-wise and percentage of the cap-wise. So we'll get into that coming up. I'm Connor Thomas in for Andrew Salciunas, who you just heard there. John Kincade to my left, Brennan Gunn on the board. We're back for more here on Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Tyrone Johnson, Ricky Vitalico, and Silvana Kelleher. The best show ever. Smart.
man. I just can't get over the numbers surrounding the contracts for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins compared to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Now, I'm
making you smile.
Yeah, I'm not looking at the total number of the contract, right? Like the overall total dollar amount. Jamar Chase becomes the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. And hey, deservedly so.
Good for him.
He's unbelievable. And they had a great season this past year. But I'm looking at what the per year average is, and I'm also looking at the percentage of the salary cap. Now, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both clearly got their deals done well before these new contracts just came down for T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. But to give you an idea, because I would say those duos are similar, right? Maybe not in play style, but in skill level.
Yeah.
Like they're in the, I don't know, are those the top two in the NFL right now? I guess
if they aren't,
Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are still there.
Yeah, no, I'll take them. I'll take those two as the top two.
So you feel pretty good about the comparison of those guys. Well, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, from now until the end of their contracts are up. Well, I'm combining them here. They're going to owe the Cincinnati Bengals, or the Cincinnati Bengals are going to owe them $69 million per year based on their salary.
How much?
$69 million
Listen
per
to
year.
Yeah, that's nice.
That is 24% of the available salary cap number for Cincinnati. Meanwhile, for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, $57 million per year, 21% of the Philadelphia Eagles cap. Now, that 3% might not sound like a crazy big difference, but when you talk about $12 million extra dollars in cap space for a duo that is equal to, or in some cases better than, what the Cincinnati Bengals are paying for. Oh, and by the way, you already have a great defense with young players. Oh, by the way, you have Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. Like, you have the best offensive line in football. It is insane that Howie Roseman is able to set the market so often on these big-time contracts, and it's because he's the first guy to it. When you wait around like the Cincinnati Bengals did for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and you go ahead and screw around with the franchise tag, and hey, we might pay you, we might not pay you, we don't know what we're doing. When you're unwilling to be the first one to the table, you end up paying more for the same or more for less. And now you are out $12 million, which, by the way, remind me what Zach Bond is getting paid on his new deal. What is he at, like 16?
He's the fourth highest.
$17 million?
Yeah, I think it's like around 16.
You could have had 3/4 of the cap hit that the Eagles are using on a all-pro linebacker, a defensive player of the year candidate, if you had just done this sooner. But instead, you decided to take $12 million, which is a good other player, and take it off your books because you're too slow to realize what you need to do and when you need to pay guys. And Howie Roseman, that doesn't happen to.
Well, this is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to make sure Jalen Carter gets paid early. There any doubt in your mind?
Have to. No, I have
to.
The
only way that doesn't happen is if Jalen Carter says, I'm good to wait, and he plays poker, and figures, hey, I can wait. I don't believe that will happen. I believe he's going to be very, very happy to stay. But they're going to get ahead of this list. Just think of it. 2026, you got to make a deal at the end of next season. You'll have to have deals with Carter, Nolan Smith, Cam Jurgens, and Jordan Davis picking up his fifth-year option. And then Quinyon and Cooper both will come up the next year. You could give something to Quinyon. You could give something to Cooper. So in a couple years, and we're talking about it's getting down to it.
Yeah.
You got to take Quinyon's fifth year, which they absolutely will. But whenever Howie takes a fifth year, that fifth-year option, he always extends it into a second or a third year to then really null the
Well, do you see that happening with Jordan Davis, as you just mentioned? Do you see them doing an extension with him?
Here's what I see them doing, picking up the fifth year and taking a sort of wait and see.
And then, see what happens after that.
I think he's the one, and I hate to say this because I love Jordan, and I've watched him since coming out of high school. I don't believe, if you're talking about the chart of all the players, Quinyon, Cooper, Carter, Nolan Smith, Cam Jurgens, Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis would be the one in the Sesame Street game that's on the outside looking in. So they exercise the fifth-year option. They get the fourth year. They take the fifth year, and then see what it goes. See where it goes.
Here's the awesome thing. Howie Roseman has a chance to screw over a team, and we're going to do this exercise in the 9 o'clock hour.
We always love that.
The 9 o'clock hour, we're going to talk about teams that have really caught up to the Philadelphia Eagles, if there are any.
Potentially.
And we're going to break that down further. Howie Roseman has a chance to screw one of those teams over. Because I think the Los Angeles Rams are in an interesting spot.
So do I.
Now, I don't know how long their window lasts because Matt Stafford is ancient. Devontae Smith, who they brought, or Devontae Adams, who they brought in, is not exactly in the prime of his career. But they have two young defensive linemen that were rookies this past year, Jared Verse and Braden Fisk.
And we saw they were ready for prime time in the NFC divisional playoffs.
But guess what? Jalen Carter was drafted the year before. Nolan Smith was drafted the year before. So the Philadelphia Eagles are going to have an earlier option on extensions for their players than those players. So if you wait,
that's next level.
Those players may set the market. But if Howie Roseman is first to the table, guess who's bumping up the price for those folks over there in Los Angeles?
Okay, that's next level thinking. I like it.
It's a beautiful thing that you got these guys when you did.
Not to mention, too, what people don't think about, too, is we're not in a great tax situation here, but there are places like California where it sucks.
Yeah.
New York, where it really sucks. Where it's terrible. We're not in a great situation. We don't have an advantage over 2/3 of the team in the league. But we do have an advantage over teams like that.
It's just like these are the things you have to look at when you figure out why Howie Roseman is doing things this way. It may take Howie Roseman 5 minutes to come to that determination. It may take us 5 days. But eventually, we're going to see, this is what he was looking at. This is the strategy. And more often than not, you see moves like this made by another team, and you say, well, Howie's part of the reason that, one, they had to pay so much, and two, the Eagles are in such a good position conversely or comparatively to the Cincinnati Bengals because they didn't wait around until somebody else set the market. So it's just credit to what he's been able to do, and very happy to have Howie Roseman as the GM of this football team. Now, speaking of very happy, there are a lot of folks that are sports fans that are going to be very happy Thursday and Friday because March Madness is right around the corner. We had Selection Sunday yesterday. The brackets are out. People, I'm sure, are filling them out this morning and avoiding working at offices across the country. But, Johnny, you might rain on people's parade a little bit.
I think, you got enough rain last night.
Well, we might get more.
You're going to get more.
This next segment.
There's an incoming cold front with more rain.
You want to argue? We'll argue coming up next. I'm Connor Thomas in for Andrew Salciunas, John Kincade to my left, Brendan Gunn on the board, and we're back from work Kincade Salciunas after this here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Another Super Bowl champion bird hits the road. I'm Brendan Gunn with your Fanatic Sports Update. Over the weekend, the Eagles lost another key member of their 2024 Super Bowl roster when Mekhi Becton signed with the Los Angeles Chargers. That deal is projected to earn the Birds a 6th-round compensatory pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. Speaking of the draft, Dave Zangaro of NBC Sports Philadelphia joined the best show ever on Friday, and he says it's important for the Eagles to take care of some of the roster holes before the draft for this reason.
It's all about making sure you have enough pieces in place where you don't feel like you have to stretch for need in the draft. None of these signings are like big splash signings, and we didn't expect them to have big splash signings, but it's all about just making sure you take care of some of these needs so that when you get to the draft, you don't reach.
The Sixers put an end to their 3-game losing skid yesterday with a 130-125 win over the Dallas Mavericks. Quentin Grimes led the way for the Sixers with 28 points. They continue the road trip in Texas again tonight against the Houston Rockets. Tip-off is at 8, and you can listen to that game live right here on The Fanatic. And the Flyers, they lost their matchup over the weekend to the Carolina Hurricanes by a score of 5-0, but they begin their 5-game road trip tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning on the road. Of course, puck drops at 7 p.m. in that one, and you can catch that game on our sister station, WMMR. This update was brought to you by the Bet Parks online casino and sportsbook app. Play your favorite casino games and bet on sports on the Bet Parks app. You love to play, you love to win. You bet. Bet Parks must be 21 and in Pierre, New Jersey. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. I'm Brendan Gunn on the home of the 76ers and the Flyers. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Bill Colarulo.
I do trust Howie Roseman. I think he's the best general manager in the NFL.
Football Monday here on the Fanatic, by the way, brought to you by Pierce Phelps Bryant Heating and Air Conditioning. Visit nopaybryant.com. A Championship Monday, an Andrew Salciunas Vacation Monday, a St. Patrick's Day Monday. This is a special Monday here.
A TPC Sawgrass final Monday morning.
Yeah, crazy what happened there. If you're a golf fan and you didn't see it, the Players' Championship always played at TPC Sawgrass, had a rain delay yesterday, and then resumed in the evening and finished with a tie at the top of the leaderboard with J.J. Spawn and Rory McIlroy. And now they're going to be playing a 3-hole aggregate playoff starting at 9 a.m. So, yeah, we're going to have to keep an eye on that.
Better than watching The View. I mean, that's perfect.
This is absurd.
Brandon, you're going to have to pass it up.
Because
I know.
You know what I did yesterday? I saw that Rory was on hole, 7 or 8. I was like, okay, I'm going to just take Rory to win it all. And it'll be an hour and a half worth of my time.
Okay.
Because he'll just play the back 9.
He's going to entertain you.
And then they go weather delay, and I'm like, now it's my whole Sunday that I'm going to have to check in when they start back up. I was watching it later when I was over at my mom's house in Jersey. Then they tie, and I'm waiting for the playoff to start, and then they're playoff 9 a.m. This is supposed to be just an hour and a half bet to kill time before I went to play 5-iron on Sunday. And the next thing you know, I'm just locked into this tournament way more than I thought I needed to be.
When I give you this, both right now, quick, Price is Right. To play TPC Sawgrass, I have twice with a caddy and the caddy gratuity. Play TPC Sawgrass, so you are walking. You've got a caddy, and you've got a gratuity to the caddy. How much did that cost in 2019?
$270.
$270? No.
TPC Sawgrass?
I would say $800.
Oh, my gosh, you just went over. You would have lost.
I won.
$775.
I knew he was going to go over.
So, now, I did it with a client who took us, paid for me and my partner.
That's a good deal.
All we did was tip the caddy. $775.
I would pay that. I got to be honest.
For that event?
Just shoot.
Yeah.
For the terribly. I think now I'm playing not the member tees. I'm playing the up tees, but not the senior tees, up tees. I think I shot 106, 107.
It's not bad though for
it's not.
PGA
Yeah, but they don't have. Yeah, but they didn't have it at the time set up at PGA. They had it set up for more.
Right, regular distance.
I think I shot 106 or 107. It was the highest score I'd shot in 2 years, 3 years. So just goes to
show. Tough course. We'll see what ends up happening there.
The greens is where you waste all your putts.
Yeah, this is the first big one of the year though for golf fans out there. So
should be fun.
It'll be interesting. Speaking of fun events that happen in March, well, we've got the tournament coming up, Johnny, and you have. I understand why you feel this way about the tournament. And you are not wrong because you have the numbers to back it up. But in a second, you're going to make this case, and I'm going to have to argue on behalf of the people.
That's fine. You can argue on behalf of the people.
You're listening to
I wonder where Gunn's going to fall on it.
I think, Villanova's not in there.
Exactly.
I don't know. You're listening to 97.5 The Fanatic, WPN, WPN HD1, Burlington, Philadelphia, Beasley Media Group station, broadcasting live from the Comcast Business Studio, powering possibilities. So, Johnny, explain your take on the tournament.
Well, we have the tournament this week. And I will tell you, to me, it is one of the fakest fan reaction things you're going to see all week. Thank God Mike Greenberg isn't doing his radio show anymore. Because every year I would point this out. There'd be 3 or 4 events and he'd go, it's the greatest time of the year. That it's the NCAA tournament. When, in fact, we can just look at the numbers. The amount of people that now watch it compared to before. The amount of people that now attend it compared to before. This thing has dropped completely off the map. It has become not as big a deal. And they've watered it down, and a lot of the one-and-dones are part of it. But as far as fan reaction, you will hear the biggest frauds this week. Hey, who's your 5'12"? And they couldn't tell you one player on either roster. Who you picking in the 3-14 matchup? I've got Armpit State pulling the upset. This is the biggest fake fan week in all of sports. There's nothing close, nothing touches it, and yes, it's a great opportunity to get out to wherever your watering hole is and have a great time, hang with friends, have a pitcher of beer, watch some hoops. It's awesome, but it is the biggest fake fan event in all of sports. In any calendar year.
Yeah, but that's why it's fun.
No, I mean it's fun.
Why it's
no,
a
I
good
said to you,
time.
I cede the point to you that for a couple days it's fun, but the first 2 days are the most watched, the most interested, the most amount of people that pay attention to the tournament. The second 2 days, round 2, is the second most important part of the tournament. Then it lags off 3, 4, 5 till you get to the Final Four, and it bumps up a bit.
Yeah, but that's why it's great. That's why
Why is that great, though? I don't understand why it's
because anyone could play a national championship game, right? Anyone could play a basketball game amongst two good teams. That happens in the NBA once or twice a week, where you say two great teams meet up. But what you don't ever really see is a sport of this magnitude have this many games in a row that actually all play into the same thing. Basically, what it is just the parity that plays into it, which is not as much as people think, but there is still some parity. We've seen a couple 1 seeds go down to 16 seeds over the past couple of years. It's the chance to be a fake fan as well, because I think there are more diehard fans of professional sports than there are collegiate sports, obviously.
That's true.
And I love that, because for me, when I'm watching a sports game, it's always Philadelphia sports, and I always care significantly about the outcome.
All right, well, you know what? Then we agree.
Yeah. Well,
then we sort of agree. It's just because it is the biggest fake fan event in all. There is only one more. That's the Kentucky Derby.
Well,
where people pay attention
are
to
there
that.
fans of that?
Yes,
I think it's
people
just
love people at derby parties.
Yeah,
and dress up and.
I don't think they're lying saying they're in on a horse. I think they're just having fun.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. That's all this is. It isn't about the basketball. It's about betting on your bracket.
Right.
It's about hanging out with your buddies and drinking some beers and watching games.
It's about the basketball a little bit. It's about the moments. It's not.
People don't even watch it all year long. Gunnar, do you realize some of the big college basketball games that they have put out there?
Yeah, they suck. They're terrible.
That they've even brought that fake, the Fugazi, college game day.
Yeah, there's no more storylines in college basketball.
They've gotten
because people don't stay long.
They've gotten less ratings for the game that they're there to hype up than some NHL games on the network on a Saturday afternoon, from WNBA big games last year with Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, but people still care about the basketball because there's storylines that are made up in the moment, like the underdog, the Jack whatever.
Jack Golke.
Yes, when they get to
Jack Golke.
Yeah, when they get to know the Jack Golke story.
Or like DJ Burns.
When they're the fake fan.
Yeah, Fairleigh Dickinson, like the 16 seeds. You're rooting for the underdog. Like you're invested in the game.
You get invested in the game, absolutely. But you're not a fan of them.
No,
you don't know anybody in these games. And then you're going to have the blowhard in the office. Now, I don't know who it is around here. They'll be doing is like, hey, did you fill out your bracket yet?
Yeah,
Man, I got my 5-12 upsets picked. You couldn't name one person. Couldn't give me one person on either team. So, in other words, you're just going, I'm picking a 12 because a 12 always beats a 5. It is the laziest week in sports talk radio for a lot of hosts. I already heard it this morning on some of the previews for the national shows. Who's your 5-12 upset? You got a Cinderella picked yet?
It's fun, though. Like, it's lazy as sports talk radio hosts to do that.
But nobody's offering any insight.
It's bar banter. It's banter with your friends. Like, it's fun now.
No insight.
You don't need insight. You don't need to be right. You don't need to know what you're talking about. All you need is beers and the boys and some basketball, and we're gonna go get
triple B's.
You know
LeVar Ball.
It's on the board. Are you on my drop board right now?
Yeah, where is
it? Get some music. There's March Madness music on it. Yeah, there it is. This comes on, and you're at the bar, and you say, "Get us another round, sir. We've got Wofford taking on Kentucky, and they're gonna get smoked."
I'm gonna do you a favor, and I'll do this as a one-time favor to you, Brendan Gunn. Your name of your new head coach at Villanova.
Ryan Odom.
No. Should be one name.
Kevin Jupiter.
Chris Collins.
Northwestern?
Chris Collins should be your new head coach. If you're smart, Villanova will do whatever it takes to get Chris Collins a bump in salary. He's making like...
See, are you Trojan horsing us right now?
No.
Are you putting that in the atmosphere because that's what you want?
Huge fan of Coach Collins. I think he's an excellent college coach. I think what he's done at Northwestern is he went in there with a paddle and revived a dead body. I'm telling you right now, Chris Collins. How about this? As a Temple fan, I really don't think I want to see it happen because it is going to be the best hire you can make.
They need to get it right. And a part of me, I'm sick to my stomach. I was almost rooting for St. Joe's this weekend just to get a damn Big Five team back in the tournament.
I like Ryan Odom, though. I think that's a nice consolation prize to me. Chris Collins is the guy. And his dad has pedigree in the market. He is a name, and he has done a spectacular job in Northwestern.
See, I say you just continue to go through the solar system. Like, find Jupiter, find Saturn, find a.
Well, we just got rid of Uranus.
Connor, when we find Uranus, we're going to really be happy.
No, they already found him.
Nobody please look for that.
There we go.
But yeah, I love the tournament, and it's not because I'm going to act like I'm some college basketball know-it-all. It's just such a fun time where a sport takes over 2 days more than like the only other thing I think I can compare it to is like the World Cup, and even those games are more spaced out.
Yeah, but the World Cup, people actually have a rooting interest and know people that are involved in it.
Yeah, but sometimes
I couldn't tell you a single guy on Team USA. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think most people can.
Can you tell me who is on some of the biggest teams in the tournament?
Neymar,
soccer players.
Ronaldo.
Like, I mean, you can do some of the biggest names in the world.
Yeah, but
I
can name Cooper Flagg. I can name some other guys.
But you're not. You are more of a college hoops fan than Medi.
Is Rutgers in? I don't think Rutgers is.
Yeah, I don't think.
No, they're not.
Rough day for New Jersey.
I heard Tyrone and Dylan were pushing hard. They were badgering the committee to get Rutgers in. It just didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that it's like the world's most zoned-in sporting event when it comes to knowing the players, but it's still like it's a nice time for people to be able to watch an event that maybe they care about less. The stakes may feel lower, and you get to enjoy it a little bit more than you will when, like, the Eagles' loss will ruin 2 weeks for you. The tournament is just kind of like, in this moment, this is fun.
And nobody cares. And nobody cares about your bracket in closing. Nobody cares about your bracket.
I care about your bracket. Everybody tweet me when you get a game correct. I'll tag John after the fact.
No, thank you.
Coming up next, we're going to rank 4 different aspects of Howie Roseman's job based on what we trust him with most. I'll tell you what those 4 different aspects are, and we'll see how he grades out on our estimation. I'm Connor Thomas sitting in for Andrew Salciunas. John Kincade alongside me. Brendan Gunn on the board. We're back for more Kincade and Salciunas after this here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
The Philadelphia 76ers.
Sixers win. Play that song.
The Philadelphia Flyers.
have something that's great going on at the Fanatic, not just our knockout tournament, which, by the way, you can go on our website and enter the promo code, or not the promo code, but the code SEAT, S-E-A-T. That's our code for today that you can put in on 975thefanatic.com for your chance to win tickets to Sixers Wizards and then to Knockout after. Of course, that's sponsored by Barlow Chevrolet and Del Rand. For honest pricing and dedicated service, go ahead and check them out. But also, we got the deal of the week back here, and Arnold's Family Fun Center. It's nice that Salciunas isn't here for this, Johnny, because he always talks about how he'd whoop us at go-karts or mini golf. Well, Arnold's Family Fun Center has all of it. Get two $50 point cards for the price of one to Arnold's Family Fun Center in Oaks, PA. Basically, you're getting a free $50. And they got those go-karts, mini golf, bowling, and more action-packed excitement for all ages at Arnold's. Get this exclusive offer while supplies last at 975thefanatic.com/deals. We would smoke him in mini golf. I have seen him drive, though.
We would absolutely smoke him in mini golf.
I'd be worried about
regular golf.
Yeah, I'd be worried about him clipping us in the go-kart, though, Salciunas. So we'll have to see.
I think he'd be ultra-aggressive.
I think so, too.
I think you would be.
They say no bumping on those things. I'm pro-bumping.
Get out of here.
I'm pro-bumping. Rubbing's racing.
I can just tell you, down in Destin, they had one of these, and Liv and I would sit in the two-seater one, and we'd go out there, and there's supposed to be no bumping. My wife wouldn't talk to me on the drive home twice from the place to go back to our rental place. She was so pissed. She's like, "You could have flipped that thing." I'm like, "Honey, they're not going to flip.
They're go-karts.
They're go-karts. They're not going to flip. We're on the highway."
Hey, man, got to take it seriously at Arnold's Family Fun Center up there. So go ahead and check out the Fanatic deal of the week. Now, Howie Roseman handles everything well. Just like Arnold's handles go-karts and mini golf and bowling and everything, Howie Roseman is a versatile man. So I want us to rank 4 different aspects of his job based on what we trust him most with. So this is like, if I give Howie Roseman an opportunity to work with this aspect of his job, I am most confident in which one for him to be successful.
Okay.
Here are the 4. The NFL draft, free agency, trades, and cap management. So I'll give that to you one more time. The draft, free agency, trades, and cap management. I'd say that pretty much encompasses the responsibilities of a GM from the outside perspective of the fan base. So I think there's one that we could all agree on. Cap management has got to be number 1 for Howie Roseman.
It's got to be 1.
Okay, so we can put that at the top of the list. Now it gets interesting, though, because with trades, free agency, and the draft on the table, he's been really good at the draft, but he's also had some fleece trades. Free agency, is that 4 out of these? Is that last place, you think?
I'm going cap, draft, free agency, trades.
Cap, draft, free agency, and you're putting trades last.
Trades last.
Can you explain? Because I think he's had some pretty solid trades recently.
I think he's also done some of his pickups and some of his trades, like especially the in-season ones, have been hold your nose bad, really bad. And I think if you take free agency, he's done better in free agency than
Okay. I don't think that's unfair. I think maybe
you could easily switch either one.
Draft being second, though, I think might be somewhere we all have to agree.
You think so? I mean, I don't know about the draft because up until this year when they all panned out at once, there was a lot of questions about his drafting skills until these guys all panned out this year.
Well,
Jordan Davis was a big question mark. Nolan Smith was a big question mark.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys on the defensive side of the ball, he was not good at until they finally panned out years later.
But
this is 4 years, though. 4 years, first 3 rounds, 12 guys that are major contributors to this team.
Yeah, offense, he's been consistently good. Great. Defense, there were some question marks until they all panned out this year.
Right, but they don't exist anymore. You can't live in the world.
But
you can't live in the world of Jalen Carter as a question mark. Jordan Davis is a question mark.
That was also can't miss.
Now, look, Jordan Davis is, to me, Jordan Davis is still a question mark of whether I want to extend him.
Yeah, I don't.
To me, I think Jordan Davis could potentially be replaceable. I need to see him one more time and then make that decision.
But he's not a question mark as far as being an NFL player.
No. But I don't believe. How about this? I don't believe. What was he drafted? 16th? Or 15th?
Jordan Davis?
13th.
He was 13th because Kyle Hamilton was 12.
Went 14.
And Kenyon
14 swept it. Yeah.
I would absolutely believe he hasn't come close to justifying his draft status.
I'm good with that.
Not even close.
Like, I'm not okay with that.
I love Jordan Davis and what he brings to the team, but he hasn't come close to that.
Yeah, but, Bren, you can't say, well, these guys were question marks until they weren't. Like, I don't know.
I'm not saying he's bad at it. I'm just saying I don't know if I'd put that
so
second.
What do you have second then?
Right now, I had free agency second. I think he's been pretty much on a heater for that for a long time.
Bryce Huff, Devin White.
Yeah, but
two of his top three last year, his top three expenditures were
Zach
disasters.
Like
Saquon Barkley, Mekhi Becton.
Well, Saquon Barkley.
Like you're not going to bat 100%.
I got to tell you, I'm not really going, oh my gosh, Howie, dude, you saw Saquon Barkley was a great talent? I'm not doing that.
Yeah, but it's like Jalen Carter. It's like he was the top-rated prospect.
Yeah,
so
but he
if
went
you're
and
not
got him. But he went and got Jalen Carter. And that works under trades, by the way. It's draft, but it's also trade.
It is a
That's
trade.
a fair
also
point.
trade.
Oh, we might have
So
to
it's also a trade. I just got to be objective.
Now,
he went up and got. I have no idea why the Bears let the Eagles slide into 9 to take him.
Yeah.
No idea.
And when I say draft it and put it lower than some of these, it's like splitting hairs, though, right here. He's the greatest GM in sports.
Let's go back to Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter, a lot of teams, the reason he didn't go off the board is because a lot of teams wouldn't touch him because of them not understanding or getting to know what went on that fateful night at the University of Georgia.
Yeah, but in hindsight, it's kind of silly to me that anybody passed on him because there was a lot of question marks at the time.
They didn't want negative publicity. They were afraid. They hadn't done their homework and saw he's a mile and a half from the accident that happened. It wasn't, people were like, he was drag racing. Yes, he was. But he was sitting at a traffic light when the car crashed. He wasn't even near them. He was a mile and a half from them.
That aside, like you can't use hindsight to be like what Jalen Carter has turned into the same way as the other guys. You have to evaluate Howie Roseman and what he did in the moment.
Okay, well, the Saquon thing, people weren't signing a running back.
Oh, no.
Right.
I raised my hand. I didn't want it. I did not want to pay big money to a running back. Certainly looks like a great expenditure now.
Credit for all of these things. And
I also wouldn't have upped him this much this offseason.
And
not even close.
We'll worry about that one in like 2-3 years.
Hopefully.
And we probably will have a point where we look at that Saquon Barkley contract and say, okay, we got to find a way to work with this. But here's the funny thing. This offseason, if I had to ask you of those four things, cap management, draft, free agency, and trades, which one is most important to the Eagles' strategy this offseason?
Draft.
Yeah, 100% draft.
I say draft. What do you say, cap management?
Cap management.
I say draft.
Cap management opens up the opportunity for you to focus on the draft.
Yeah, because I think going back to that whiteboard thing, you guys were talking about the next move, but I think the thing on the top of that whiteboard is the Jalen Carter extension, and everything. Every decision up until that point is leading up into that.
So I have draft as two. I would say that the top two things that we would give Howie Roseman proper grades for would be the top two things that are required of this Philadelphia Eagles offseason. And even if they're not, we can interchange any of the bottom three and know that cap management is number one for his skill set. He's the perfect GM for what the Eagles are looking for. Now, he's the perfect GM anyway, but that should make you feel good that Howie Roseman's expertise is in the area the Eagles need it to be.
I'm happy to take responsibility for all of that.
You should be, Howie, and we're proud to have you here in this city. All right, coming up next, we are going to talk a little bit about the teams that have made a step up and also Johnny's whole thing with luck. We're going to have the St. Patrick's Day outfit conversation, but also luck in sports because you don't necessarily agree that it's a thing. And we've had conversations surrounding this before. So we'll talk about it next. I'm Connor Thomas, John Kincade to my left, Brendan Gunn on the board. We're back from work Kincade Salciunas after this here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Becton is heading west. I'm Brendan Gunn with your Fanatic Sports Update. Over the weekend, the Eagles lost another key piece to their 2024 Super Bowl roster when Mekhi Becton signed out west with the Los Angeles Chargers. That deal is projected to earn the Birds a 6th-round compensatory pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, not this year, next year. Speaking of the draft, Dave Zangaro of NBC Sports Philadelphia joined the best show ever on Friday, and he says it's important for the Eagles to take care of some of the roster holes before the draft for this reason.
It's all about making sure you have enough pieces in place where you don't feel like you have to stretch for need in the draft. None of these signings are like big splash signings, and we didn't expect them to have big splash signings, but it's all about just making sure you take care of some of these needs so that when you get to the draft, you don't reach.
The Sixers put an end to their 3-game losing skid yesterday with a 130-125 win over the Dallas Mavericks. Quentin Grimes led the way for the Sixers with 28 points. They continue their road trip in Texas again tonight against the Houston Rockets. Tip-off is at 8 for that one. You can listen to that game live right here on the Fanatic. And the Flyers, they lost their matchup over the weekend to the Carolina Hurricanes 5-0, but they begin their 5-game road trip tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Puck drops at 7 on that one, and that game can be heard on our sister station, WMMR. This update was brought to you by Bradford White Water Heaters. When you need a new water heater, choose one that is built to be the best. Choose Bradford White. I'm Brendan Gunn on the home of the 76ers and the Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Vacation? Business trip? Don't worry, you can still hear all your...
So I want to get into this conversation about where other NFL teams are compared to the Eagles, because we had a lengthy, pretty much 2-segment conversation about why the Bengals are in just a rough spot right now. They had to kind of pay Jamar and T. Higgins, because I don't know any other way to competing for a championship in the AFC.
Or to keep Joe Burrow happy.
Exactly. Like, so you kind of, it's not very similar, but it's not dissimilar from the situation the San Francisco 49ers are in with Brock Purdy, where it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Either you're cap screwed for a while, or you're losing a guy that seems pretty important to your team's ability to contend. But what that puts them in a situation now is they don't have the cap needed to build their defense, or at least it seems so, because you've given out these 3 big contracts on offense. The Eagles aren't in that situation because Howie Roseman is quick to the table. He extends guys before he needs to, which saves money on the back end, which makes contracts now like A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith by comparison look cheap. You're saving $12 million a year based on that compared to the Jamar Chase, T. Higgins thing. So there are teams that don't do things the right way. And yet there are teams this offseason around the NFL that have had pretty nice offseasons. I don't know nice enough to catch the Philadelphia Eagles or to put themselves above the Philadelphia Eagles. So let's look around.
I'm wondering what people will go with that. Are we keeping it just to NFC?
I'd say we should.
Let's do it just for the simplicity of it.
Yeah, sake of brevity. And let's start with the division. Now, obviously, the Cowboys have done basically nothing. Like, they're
better, though.
They got Miles Sanders. They got a long snapper. They're better, you think?
Yeah, they're a little better.
Like, slightly, but...
They're slightly better.
Yeah, so...
They lost Zach Martin, though.
They picked up that's due retirement, and Zach's a little struggle bus been going with the injuries and stuff like that.
They were a trash can that was full of trash last year, and this year the garbage man came and he emptied it out. So it might stink a little less.
If Dak's healthy and things like that, they should be a little bit
better. Yeah, I mean,
are
better than
the
Cooper
Eagles?
Rush.
Please, they're not even in the neighborhood.
The Giants are nowhere close.
Right.
The Commanders have had an interesting offseason. I don't hate what they've done.
I do.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, all in on.
I'm shocked that
like spending on 30-plus-year-olds. And
they did exactly what Howie Roseman doesn't do. They did exactly opposite the Howie Roseman strategy.
Like, they're older at every position on offense besides the Eagles, and the Eagles are better than them already.
And more importantly, they didn't invest more in the lines of scrimmage, which to me...
Well, they got Laramie Tunsil.
With youth... He was the worst player in the NFL last year, the most penalized guy in the entire league last year.
He was most penalized. He wasn't the worst. He's still a talented guy.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you this. If you're old and you're an older player and you start getting penalties, it's because you're getting beat.
Yeah.
Or you're anticipating getting beat. He was the most penalized player in the entire league, any position, last year.
Absolutely. I'm no debating that. You're right in the thought process there. I still think he's a talented enough player to do something for them. Like, I don't think Jaden Daniels is worried about Laramie Tunsil. I think he's excited to have that. And what the Commanders are doing is they're trying to go all in. They think their window is now with Jaden Daniels before they have to pay him, and they're trying to maximize before they hand out that big contract, which means once they pay Jaden Daniels, they could be screwed because they are not going to have enough room to bring in young players, pay extensions to young players, keep guys on that team. But for now, they're kind of picking the all-in over the longer view in the room, which I don't think is right for them, but I do think that they'll be competitive in the division again this year. No, not to the level of the Eagles.
No,
we can all agree on that, right?
Good. Now,
NFC, are there any teams
Detroit?
out there? Detroit is... They didn't really do anything.
But they got to be right there.
Yeah, but this is their make or break year, I think.
No, it is. I'm going to tell you.
No. Last year was their make or break.
No, I'm going to tell you right now with the Eagles, losses on their roster. They have to make up. If Detroit's healthy, they have to make up to catch Detroit.
I disagree.
Let's see how good they are without their coaches.
That's what I'm looking at. You lost two coordinators.
That's absolutely huge losses. We're talking talent on the roster, right? That's what we're saying?
Well, we're looking at...
We didn't bring coaches into this. We brought just talent on the roster.
Roster-wise, yes.
Detroit's roster is more talented. It is. Right now, with all the subtractions the Eagles have had,
I don't know.
You're going to tell me...
You go down the list on offense, the Eagles are pretty much better at everything besides maybe some offensive line positions.
I think their offensive line is very... I think
Sam Laporte, I'll take over.
I think the offensive lines of the two teams are really, really close.
Yeah, like 1A, 1B.
I'm not just going to say... I'm not going to say coin flip, but it's damn close.
Wide receiver, you're marginally better.
You're marginally better.
Running back, you're significantly better because Saquon Barkley's significantly better.
But you have two options. Which is better insurance.
They do.
If something happens.
I think the David Montgomery you're going to get this year is very similar to the A.J. Dillon you're going to get this year.
Wow. I think David Montgomery is shoulders ahead of AJ.
And I'm taking Hurts all day, every day over Jared Goff. Jared Goff can have those regular season stats. When the moment's biggest, he goes out there and throws 4 picks all the time.
And you say that he's been to the Super Bowl. He's been to a couple NFC title games. I mean,
he was small.
He's not terrible.
He's not terrible.
The way he's talked about in this town, it's ridiculous.
He's not terrible, but when the moment's the biggest, we see Jalen Hurts play his best and Jared Goff play his worst.
Okay, but we didn't say that in 21 in the playoffs. We didn't say that in 23 in the playoffs about Jalen Hurts. So you can't do that. Can't cherry pick stats with me. 23 in the playoffs, Jalen was atrocious. He was flat out awful. 22 and 24, he was freaking awesome.
Yeah. So,
but in 23 he was terrible. 21 he was terrible.
21 his first year as a starter.
I understand.
Detroit is a NFC championship contender. They are. They are a team that could go to the Super Bowl this year.
Okay.
And I'm interested. And for the Dave Montgomery thing, I mean the production that you're going to get. He's a better running back than A.J. Dillon, but the split should be heavy Jahmyr Gibbs.
Okay, where do you go? Do you think any of the other teams in the NFC North?
Minnesota worries me a little bit.
Minnesota's damn good.
That defense is elite.
But who's the quarterback?
That's the problem.
And that just doesn't allow me, but I can tell you, depending on I will say it over and over that J.J. McCarthy, I truly believe with the coaching they have, J.J. McCarthy will be able to do anything that Brock Purdy's been done, and he'll probably do it better.
Now, let me ask.
I'm hoping Aaron Rodgers goes there and ruins everything.
Oh, that'd be delicious.
I'm hoping he doesn't.
See, that would be awesome.
I do not want Aaron Rodgers in Minnesota.
He's never going to be healthy for 17 games. He is a absolute cancer. He is a problem. He's not a team guy.
Totally
He's going to be yucking it up with Pat McAfee.
He doesn't show up to OTAs. He sets the culture that way.
He's not bad culture guy.
Guys.
Bad.
Sam Darnold just had an unbelievable year throwing to Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, but he did all the right things. He did all the right things that Aaron Rodgers is not going to do.
Here's the thing. If you're telling me who's got a better chance at being a competitive team this year, a team with J.J. McCarthy as their quarterback or a team with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback, I'm still taking Rodgers.
Wow, I'm not seeing the game.
I don't know.
McCarthy's never taken a snap in an NFL regular season game.
He's 45 and coming off an Achilles a year and a half
And he's
ago.
a dope. Okay. Not just what he enjoys in his spare time. He's a dope.
He is a dope.
He's going to be in there destroying their culture. They go out and they lose a tight game because youngsters are making mistakes. He's going to be on McAfee, just like he was as a member of the Jets going, well, if we had guys paying attention in the film room, he's going to ruin that culture.
Sure, but
send him there.
When the Eagles go out to Minnesota and they're in a tight game because that defense is good, and in the final 2 minutes of the game, somebody is driving to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, and you could either have the ball in J.J. McCarthy's hands or Aaron Rodgers' hands, I am taking J.J. McCarthy a billion times out of a billion, and I am not thinking
I think
twice.
right now, based on the information you have, that sounds smart. I don't believe that will be it at the end.
It may not play out that way, but Minnesota, a talented team. Detroit's still better, but that's a team that is taking strides.
You like what the Bears and the Packers are?
They're all right. I'm not too worried about it because I don't know what the quarterbacks are yet. And then when we look out to the West, because the NFC South is nothing.
I think the Rams are a problem.
The Rams are a little bit of
a problem.
What you need to hope, and I hate rooting for failure for teams unless they're like the Cowboys, Giants, or Commanders.
As long as you're not going to use the injury word.
No, absolutely not. I never root for injury for anybody, but you do kind of have to hope that the Matt Stafford fall off is coming, that the age is getting to him. Same with Devontae Adams.
Didn't look at in the NFC divisional playoff.
No, and they re-signed him, and they feel comfortable in doing so. The Rams are probably the best team in that division because Seattle's nothing. Sam Darnold is going to not be good there with no one to throw to.
Yeah, you'll probably see them opening night, dude. Like that's the way it looks right now.
Yeah. I mean, listen, 49ers are nothing. Cardinals are nothing. Like the NFC South, I guess you can look at Tampa, but I think Tampa is one of those teams that will always be around but never be a true contender. Really, I think you're looking at Rams, Eagles, Lions, and then one at-large team from the NFC North, and then whatever the Commanders do. Those are the NFC championship contending teams in the conference. And I'm taking the Eagles over all of those teams right now based on track record, coaching, all the other factors. Like, if you're worried about the Eagles, you got to look around the league. There's no one in the conference.
It's not a big reason in the conference to be sweating. Bears will be a problem potentially.
The line got better, but it depends on Caleb Williams and what he's able to do. They got a much
better coach, too. If we're putting coaching into it, they have a much better coach in charge.
We'll see what Ben Johnson does as the head guy as opposed to just the OC, but that should make you feel better about the Eagles' chances as well. Now, I've been teasing this throughout the show. Phillies fan Armageddon. Now, I'm going to count on my guy John Kincade for this one because I'm very interested in his weigh in on what's going to happen, because this is going to happen, and I need the fan base to be prepared for this, and I need us to be understanding of why it's happening, and I don't think we will be. We'll tell you what that is coming up next. We've also got the Key 3, and we'll wrap up today's topics. It is Kincade and Salciunas here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
97.5 The Fanatic's Knockout.
Phillies fan Armageddon.
Armageddon?
Yes.
Okay, sounds a little nervous.
It's going to happen.
All right.
Because this offseason, we all know the Phillies went out there and didn't really do anything. I mean, they signed Max Kepler, they traded for Jesus Luzardo, but largely ran it back.
Ran it back.
The bullpen leaves some stuff to be questioned, if not desired.
I think a lot.
Now, there was a clip I played. It's a little bit longer.
Question.
Larry Bowa joined the best show ever, I believe, this past week, and he was bullish on the Phillies bullpen. He's like, I like what I've seen from the arms. I like the guys they have. Now,
okay,
of course, he's
has Larry Bowa, and I love Larry, but has Larry ever told you, nah, this looks like crap?
Right.
This team's going to be terrible.
Back in the day when he was managing?
Yeah,
probably.
time to time he did.
Since then?
Larry told us last year the team was so driven to change the narrative and everything like that. They came out of the guns.
They seemed to be.
They looked like it.
And then it kind of all fell apart.
And then they got bored.
But the bullpen, if you have questions about it, that's fair. And that's what leads us to what's going to be Phillies fan Armageddon. Because Matt Strahm may or may not be ready for opening day. It seems like
positive news yesterday, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
that's positive.
It seems to be pointing in the right direction, but they're going to bring him along slowly because, frankly, opening day in Washington means nothing for the Philadelphia Phillies.
And I'm hoping it's not going to be freezing cold.
Yeah, that's
like a bad weekend where you don't want to risk something like that.
Absolutely. Like even if it's perfect weather, and they say, hey, we want to give Strahm another week because we don't want this to be something that turns into a deeper injury that affects him throughout the year. I get that, but you're looking at about 6 spots in the bullpen lockdown, 8 spots available, which means there could be on the opening day roster 2 open spots. And there's a guy whose velocity has been up in spring training, who the Phillies are paying a lot of money, where there hasn't been buzz about a team wanting to trade for him, which would have been the easiest way out of this, but even that, you'd have to eat some of his salary. I'm telling you right now, Taijuan Walker is going to make the opening day roster for the Philadelphia Phillies and be in the bullpen. That is something that we need to come to terms with because it is happening. There does not seem to be another option or another 2 options that would lead to Taijuan Walker not making the team.
Is he going to be the guy that you just toss out there in the give-up games like they use for a lot of it towards the end of it last year? Is that what he's going to be?
Long relief.
Yeah, he's in the Junior Marte Memorial role.
Or if you're up 7-2.
Yeah.
You're up 7-2 and you would love somebody to pitch you the 6th and 7th.
I wouldn't feel all that comfortable, even in a 5-run game with Taijuan Walker out there?
I would from what I've seen in the spring.
But I know where this fan base stands on him. The Taijuan Walker distaste was strong last year, and rightfully so.
He earned every bit of it.
He was awful. Right. Now, bullpen role may be different. I don't know. We saw him a little bit in it at the end of last season, basically out of necessity. But there is going to be a large portion of this fan base that sees the opening day roster announcement and sees Taijuan Walker's name on that list of 26 players and loses their mind that the Philadelphia Phillies are doing this again and having him on the team.
Okay, here's what I'm going to ask you. What would fans that are against him being on the roster, what would their solution be?
Probably don't have one.
Just eat all the money?
I guess.
That's stupid. You can't do that.
Well, they see
that can't be the option.
They see the no salary cap league, and they're like, well, John Middleton pays money all the time. What's best for the team? He stinks is going to be the thought, so get him out of here because there's going to be some game that he cost you, which I don't know if that's true or not, depending on how they use him in the bullpen. But the fan base is not going to be happy when they see Taijuan Walker on this team in a bullpen role or in any type of role this year. And that's something that's going to happen at least to start the season. So are Phillies fans going to be mature enough to look at this and say, yeah, we didn't really have other major league caliber options in the bullpen, which speaks to the lack of depth, which could be a problem. But this is probably the only option the Phillies have is to keep Taijuan Walker on this team. Can we accept that?
Is a trade off the table completely at this point? Because if he goes out there and pitches well in the bullpen, people aren't going to trade for that contract for a bullpen guy.
It's not off the table for maybe the season, depending on what happens around the trade deadline.
I don't believe that. There could be somebody who is interested in it. If you get it down at, a year and a half left?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
At the
around
deadline. Midterm,
right.
Around midterm, it'll be a year and a half left. And the Phillies say we're eating half of that, you can move them.
Yeah, exactly.
So at what point if he goes out there and pitches well, it's like, all right, we'll just use this guy instead, and then you're doing the same thing again next year.
Well, here's the thing. Even if he pitches well, I'm just getting inside the psyche of Phillies fans. Let's say you're in a divisional round series against somebody, and he's had a great season. He's got a sub-3 ERA out of the bullpen, and you're in a 2-run game, and Taijuan Walker takes the ball at Citizens Bank Park in the Red October. No one's going to feel good about that, even if he's an all-star out of the pen this year, which he's not going to be. So there's going to be a guy on this team that has really drawn the ire of the fan base the past couple of years, was really bad last year, and we're going to have to live with that because of where the Phillies bullpen is at. And it's the only option they have, right?
No, it's the only option. You can't – no one's – unless you're willing to pay – I think he'd have to eat more than half of it. the money remaining to him
probably
to get him off the roster.
Yeah.
And you get a bag of balls in return right now. But if he comes out, if he pitches well in April, May into June, and then Dave Dombrowski opens up and says, hey, we'll take half the paycheck remaining, I think they'll be able to move him.
I think
really
so,
do.
too. I'm just preparing everybody for seeing that announcement of the opening day roster and seeing Taijuan Walker's name.
And they start freaking out.
And all of a sudden it's, oh, my God, this team, how in the world could they ever bring him back? They're not trying to win. You have to understand the situation a little deeper than the name and then the contract, and that's something that we're just going to have to come to terms with. That's the only roster spot that I think people are going to look at on the opening day roster and be like, how in the world is this?
How's this happen? Is it going to be fair, though, if fans freak out the first time he goes out there and absolutely has a 5-inning or a 5-run inning? Like,
oh, yeah.
That's going to be more than fair, too.
You can worry about the performance. I'm not here to talk you into Taijuan Walker should be on this team. I'm telling you at this point, Taijuan Walker has to be on this team. And this is kind of something that we're just going to have to accept for the time being. And people losing their minds and taking the organization to task over it is not going to be the right response. That's just where we're at, and that's what's going to happen.
Your reasonable response to this is very reasonable.
Yeah, That's
very reasonable.
I don't like the guy as a pitcher after last year as much as the next Phillies fan. Like, I've said the guy stinks multiple times. He may be better in a bullpen role. I'm willing to go into the year and see what happens, but this is not a defend Taijuan Walker. This is a defend the organization for this one move, and also accept that they probably could have done more with the bullpen this offseason, that they wouldn't have to be in this situation, but we are where we are. They're still going to be a good baseball team. Don't let this distract you. There's plenty more to keep your eye on with the Phillies than just Taijuan Walker's roster spot. All right, it's time now for the Kincade Salciunas Key 3, the best 3 minutes of today's show.
Now, the Kincade Salciunas Key 3, today's best.
The offseason strategy for the Philadelphia Eagles has become pretty clear. We had an idea of what it was going to be, but it seems that they're putting a lot of stock into the NFL draft. And right off the bat, I'll just ask you, does it make you nervous?
The last 4 years' drafts, they have hit the first and second days, Connor, with the greatest accuracy, by the way, according to Ourlad, the greatest accuracy as far as finding starting caliber players that any team has done this century. First 2 days. So it just counts for first, second, and third rounds. They have been so accurate that I am willing to say, okay, 1 year, 2 years, okay. The third year, then I'm seeing a trend. 4 years, I'm down for it. I am a believer that Howie, his scouts have done a great job.
I trust Howie Roseman to draft.
Okay.
But I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't a little bit nervous about, okay, we got all these picks. This seems to be the only way we're going to bring this elite level talent in right now because they're not really paying anybody in free agency.
We think of the draft picks as unknown sort of lottery tickets you're going to scratch.
Right.
Think of it as with the salary cap exploding and going up every year and that flexibility, think of them as trade chips. Think of those draft picks as trade options to be able to go and get veteran players on your team.
It's hard not to be nervous about it when you see some of your favorite players go, but you got to think back to 2017, 2018, and they tried to go all in after winning that Super Bowl, signing a Michael Bennett, stuff like that, making moves for the win now. I think that Howie learned from that, and he said, "How we got a roster right now that we can win with, but I also want to win 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now too. Keep it going. You got to pay the guys that are already here." Jalen Carter's going to command probably the highest number ever by the time he gets paid. I'm not too worried about it. CJ, I loved him. I loved his attitude and stuff like that. The further away we get from the trade, I see why it had to be done. But yeah, when you see guys like that go, it stings in the moment. So I don't blame people for feeling that way, but I have the foresight to see what the hell is going to happen in a year from now, 2 years from now. You got to think of it that way.
He's on the show normally. It's Andrew Salciunas live from Clearwater Beach.
When I see what's going on with the Eagles, not only do they have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith locked up for much less than what those two players are getting. And by the way, they were like kicking the can down the road with Eagles for a couple seasons, whereas Howie Roseman just gets Devontae Smith locked up early, A.J. Brown locked up when he still had years left on the deal, and you have your core on defense already. And so this team is built offensively and defensively, which is why I always laugh at what some of the teams do around the NFL, because as great as Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are, and as great as Joe Burrow is, like they're going to put up, you should draft them as your fantasy players, right? Like Joe Burrow should be your quarterback, T. Higgins should be your second wide receiver, Jamar Chase should be your first wide receiver.
But my guess is with the depth on the defensive line in this draft, they'll feel comfortable moving back and still getting a guy that can help them and also adding more to those draft picks that they've made so valuable this offseason by acquiring a bunch of the compensatory picks and setting up compensatory picks for last year. So the strategy seems to be pointing towards the NFL draft, and that's how Howie's going to make his bones over the next 2 years, or trading those draft picks. But he is going to select a lot of players, and he's going to have hits. All right, that was the key three, the best 3 minutes of today's show. We've got a little bit of news for you. Just quick, the less interesting one to football fans. Rory McIlroy has won the Players' Championship, so my bet is cashed. But Derek Stingley has gotten paid by the Houston Texans. He got a monster contract, $90 million in total, to reset the cornerback market. Our friend Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who just went there because the Eagles may not be able to pay him in the future. Texans now have a lot of money tied up there, and they're going to have to pay C.J. Stroud. So the cornerback market has just taken a big leap forward, and that should make you think in future years about Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean.
And imagine if they're having to pay C.J. Stroud by the interception. They're going to be bankrupt. They're really going to be bankrupt.
I'll tell you.
Remember last year, C.J. Stroud was the great thing. Now, I don't think he's going to be nearly as bad as he was last year. But I don't think he's close to what they were telling you he was last offseason.
Totally agree. And Houston better find a way to compete this year because it's going to get real hard for them in the next couple seasons after this one. Now, real quick, because we didn't get your chance to voice your displeasure. I'm wearing a gray hoodie right now. Now, this hat that I have on has a little touch of green. Haley's wearing bright red back there.
Haley's wearing red like she's, I don't know.
Brendan Gunn's in like a blue multicolored parka, because his studio's 40 degrees.
And he's 100% Irish.
Yeah. Now, Erin Carty, who's back there doing our associate producing
awesome.
today, she's wearing green.
Well, she's also a professional Irish dancer, too.
Yeah, so she had to be. But, John,
she's amazing.
You're the only one of our normal crew here that's wearing green.
And I'm Scottish by my 23andMe. I'm Scottish. The Kincade Castle is in Scotland. It's not in Ireland. And how the hell am I the only one wearing green for this entire show?
I'll be honest. I wore green this weekend, and I forgot today was the actual holiday.
Yeah, I'm on that same boat. Like St. Patrick's Day to me was Saturday.
Up over the weekend.
I'm not drinking right now, Johnny. You can't blame it on the booze.
I forgot about that.
Just water only and some orange juice for me. But
yeah,
I mean, hey, plenty of time to change into something green for St. Patrick's Day. Hope you all enjoy it.
And it brings it to one thing too at the end. Lucky, the luck of the Irish. One of my least favorite terms in the entire English language. Luck's not a thing. If you've gotten to where you've gotten in life, you've gotten there because you've made intelligent choices. Unless you get lucky and find $1 million under a tree, you're not lucky.
Win the lottery or something.
Don't shortchange yourself by saying I'm lucky. I always correct every one of you. Whenever you say something about, well, I'm lucky I got the opportunity to, I'm like, BS. You know what happens? The luckiest people in life tend to be the hardest working. Just happens that way.
What do you mean? B-Gun's lucky. He doesn't work a lick.
He works his butt off.
But there is something that has luck involved, but also some very important research.
It does. H&H Heating and Air Conditioning contributes to the American Association for Cancer Research. You can join them at 975thefanatic.com/AACR because cancer research saves lives. Like, I'm not lucky to have survived cancer 3 times. It's people like the AACR. It's people like the CMOH, my doctors. I mean, you're not lucky.
Well, we feel lucky to have you. And
I'm lucky to be with you every day, guys.
We're lucky to have another day at Kincade Salciunas tomorrow. We got some great stuff coming for you the rest of the week. We'll have another check-in from Andrew Salciunas down in Clearwater, Amy Fadul. We'll talk to Jeff McClain. It's got to be some great stuff here on Kincade Salciunas all week, but that's our time. Enjoy your St. Patrick's Day. Have a green beer. Have a Shamrock Shake, whatever you're going to do. The Mike Missanelli Show comes your way next. The full crew is back for them this full week, so got some great sports talk radio still coming here on 97.5 The Fanatic.